Your ears. What's going on? Happy is it Friday today? Or is it Thursday? Friday? Happy Friday. I think we'll let the world wake up. Is this chat gonna be on? Okay, sweet. So got a special little presentation for you guys today. Not really a presentation, more of a workshop, but special little thingy ding for you guys. LTV will be fun. It is the probably I think of all the topics of all the workshops that we'll go over, this will probably be the most advanced. Mostly because to understand LTV, there is more math involved than probably any of the other components. So be prepared for that. I think I woke in a little couple stopping points. What's up, Max? What's up, Brad? Toby, Jesse, Greg, Charles, Muhan. What's up, Muhan? I like that. What's up, Kevin Gong? All right. How you guys rocking? Cool. Um, Today should be fun though. And someone asked for an agenda. And so I want to give you guys the agenda right now, which is I'm going to talk about LTV, and it'll take between 2 and 4 hours. And I'm going to ask you guys to engage with yourselves for periods of it so that you can apply some of the stuff that we go over to your own business because some of them will be thinking processes. All right? Cool? Travis, Dan, I didn't receive the memo for this meeting. Uh, I am the memo. All right, cool. Kevin, let's rock. So basically, I'm just going to be doing this to Kevin, and then everyone else, you guys can just kind of participate. All right, sweet. So with that being said, let us begin. So this comment made me want to actually tweak my talk and kind of presentation style. So Nick, thank you for this, FYI. He said, I felt this across multiple programs. This was in response to my comment that churn typically happens from overwhelm. People try to provide too many seconds of value rather than value per second. I think people are bloodhounds for value. And so the idea is like you want to have the purest substrate of value, signal to noise ratio that you possibly can. Even if you have a small amount, people will still return to drink in whatever the value that you have to deliver is. On the flip side, if you take that same value and space it out between more things, the value density goes down and the likelihood they want to return goes down with it. And so I think if you're ever at this crossroads of like, how do I provide more value? One of the easier ways is to do fewer things better. So with that being said, I made that post, and he said this last sentence that made me think about it, which was, they keep thinking more ideas, more content, more value, but I know that it would take me 6 months just to implement one or two big ideas. And so, in service of that, I'm actually going to model one of my most popular talks of all time, which is a presentation I gave years ago. Not the actual content, but the style of presentation at Gym Launch. And so I called it a TikTok style presentation, and I'll explain what that means momentarily. But basically, consider what we're about to go through as like LTV shorts. All right, so I'm just going to go through different concepts, and the idea is like only one or two of these things, because if we're being real, the bigger your business, the fewer things you'll be able to execute. And so you only need one or two things from this entire kind of workshop that we'll go through together that you to implement to ROI probably for this whole thing many times over. All right, and so I thought, okay, how can I increase the density of just these one to two ideas? Now, I will say that there's two concepts in the outline today that I've really never presented on that I think are unbelievably powerful, and I think that you will like them. So I'll pay special attention to it. I will also tell you to pay attention when it comes. So with that being said, I want you to take away, and actually use one or two big ideas to make more money per customer. And then you can just basically pocket everything else as additional context on your own business. Kind of a great idea, not now, for when you need to later, which is 99% of what you learn in business, right? So like so many times I learn something and I'm like, I'll have to pocket that for later. And then 2 years later, I end up doing something and I'm like, oh yeah, that thing. And then I'll use it. So this maybe for some of you, the vast majority of this will be that, but one or two of these ideas will ROI the entire day. Cool? Okay. So this is what we'll cover today. Fastly. So this is our agenda, which is French for agenda. So this is what we're going to be going over. And so yeah, if you don't like a topic, wait like 5 minutes, and we'll be on to the next one. So that's the good news. So I'm going to try and keep this fast paced. My goal was to not make this as long as the other ones. We will see what happens. We'll see. I'm on this ride with you. Okay. So let's start with definitions just to make sure that we are on the same page in terms of what we are talking about. So what is LTGP? The formal definition of this is the total gross profit a customer generates over their lifespan. Now, I may use LTV or LTGP interchangeably. The reason I like to clarify that it is lifetime gross profit is because lifetime value, I think, has confused many people, especially in the service business, because a lot of the writings on CLV or LTV used interchangeably come from the software world. And the software world tends to have significantly, super high gross margins. And as a result, they tend to just calculate it as basically revenue times number of months. But that really is only true for them. And we, as service providers or physical product owners, you have to factor in some other costs so that you can actually get the true number, which is what we'll go over. Okay. Now, I am adding this other one in here because I think based on the survey that you guys filled out, many of you guys are online, or at least I think the majority of you guys sell online, probably like 2/3 of you, somewhere in there. And at the end of the day, why do we want max LTV? We don't like LTV is kind of an end thing, but what we're really trying to do is make more money per click than anyone else does, right? Because we are all competing in an auction of attention. And so the pricing schema that you have, the churn that it relates to, conversion rates, things like that, all of them will ladder up to one thing, which would be your EPCs. Now, I'll still talk about mostly LTV, but I'm going to give you an example to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. All right. And so if a click is the first thing a prospect does, not sees, then we want to be able to spend as most as we possibly can in that auction. All right. So we can buy whatever we want. So here's why this is kind of complex. So let's say that we want to test out $29 a month versus $99 a month. Okay. Well, let's just say we ran this test and we had 100 clicks in both of these scenarios. Let's say the sign-up conversion rate percentage went from 3% to 4.5%. So we got 3 sign-ups and 4.5 sign-ups, and the blended price at 99 was 3 versus 28, right? And let's say our trial conversion on the back end was 33 versus 66, and our churn was twice as high at the $99 price point. And so you kind of walk this all the way through, and you can actually see that the earnings per click is actually higher at a lower price. This is why these things get complicated. It also becomes even more complicated if you do things like trials and front ends. This is obviously a software example that I was using within school to show this concept. But I want to pay respect to the fact that LTV has a lot of variables in it and a lot of things that can ultimately affect what it really is. And there's also different cohorts, which I'm not even getting into. All right. And so part of that is because many variables affect one another. And to quote B.F. Skinner, a famous psychiatrist, he said, or behavioral psychologist, excuse me, if many variables exist, many variables must be studied. So you can either just throw up your hands and say it's too complicated, or you can just learn to play it. And I think that today, my hope is that by the end of it, you'll be much clearer on how to apply these concepts to your business to make more money. Okay. So that was in a recurring business. In a non-recurring business, the math is significantly easier, and I'll show you some examples today. But this should hopefully whet your appetite. So, see, TikTokification of this thing, right? We're moving and grooving. So, next thing is goal and EPCs. All right. So, number one, my goal is that you actually know your current state. So, the amount of times that I ask a business owner on Horsey Hotline, or when someone comes out to a workshop before they've gone through the exercises we take them through, I'm like, hey, what's your LTV, man? What's your lifetime gross profit? And they're like, I don't really know that. I'm like, this is kind of important, right? Like, you can only grow the business by selling more customers or making them worth more. And you don't know one of the two parts of that equation. That should frighten you, right? So, number one is, I hope is that you can actually walk through this with me today and you'll leave at least significantly clear, or at least have a number that you can work off of. And I'll show you some back and napkin ways of calculating this. And there's just degrees of accuracy. And so the second one is that, one, you'll know where you're at. Number two is that you can set a desired superior state, right? Is actually having a goal around it. So it's like, okay, our current LTV is this. I think we can get it to this. Or our gross profit margin is this. I think we can get it to this. And so I want to walk through some of that. Like at acquisition.com, the different revenue lines have gross profit targets. The reason that's important is because as you grow, you're going to want to be able to manage expenses around those targets. Like, hey, this line of revenue should not exceed 85% gross margins. We should never get into 82, 80, like the way this is structured. And the bigger you get, the more you have to pay attention and have controls in place to do this. I'm not going to get too far ahead. I know that's not everybody, but I just want to be clear about that. Okay. And so once you know where you're at and you know where you want to go, obviously the third step is take action to bridge the gap. So maximize the amount of gross profit that you make per customer by taking steps with the highest likelihood of success. Bingo, bango, money mango. And that will ultimately maximize your earnings per click, which in the online world is kind of the auction that we all play in. Okay. Now, to be clear, today will be math heavy. LTV is more advanced, but my God, is it valuable? And so many people decide to make new offerings, and this is a big one. We're going to do a bunch of examples on this today, and never even think through the math behind take rates or cost of goods sold to see if it'll work, and more importantly, if it's even profitable or worth it, if it does work. And I think this is why half of business owners make no money. And the other 40% make barely above minimum wage. And only a tiny fraction of a percent actually make real money. And so that is our goal for the day. Know where you're at, know where you want to go, take action between. There's going to be some math, and then be able to make better decisions about what you sell and to whom you sell it to. Now, let's go over principles. So here's a few strategic principles that I will kind of set the frame for today with. So in the auction of attention, he who can make his customer more valuable to his business than to his competition wins. That's the writer downer. That's the goal. This is a quote from Dan Kennedy, old school direct response marketer. He who can spend the most to acquire a customer wins. And so the way I see business is that there are two wars in business that you can choose to participate in. You can choose to either get customers for free or make so much money from customers that it doesn't matter what it costs to get them. Everyone in the middle who doesn't know that they're actually in a war or in a game that optimizes towards one of these two extremes stays on the hamster wheel of death. And so if you think about LTV to CAC ratio being the fundamental economic unit of growth within a business, then you have two metrics. So either you make this one go really high or this one really low, and you can still make the ratio really big. And so said differently, if I have a business where I have a $1 CAC and a $20 LTV, some people might be like, well, that's silly. You're only making $20, right? Would you rather have that business or a business that you spend $1,000 to make, in terms of CAC, to make $5,000 of LTV? Well, I don't know about you, but I'd rather trade $1 for 20 and do that a zillion times compared to $1,000 for 5,000, right? Same idea. Now, how can we make the equivalent of that, right? The equivalent would be we spend $1,000, we make $20,000. We spend $1 million, we make $20 million. Now, if I had to pick between two businesses that had those kind of LTV CACs, I'd probably pick the one where it's easier to get the customers, right? And so I bring this up because many of you aren't sure what game you're actually playing. And if you're in the service business, which 80% of businesses in the US are, and I would probably imagine that kind of translates over the world, you're probably going to be in the how do I make LTV as high as possible game. Because if you're in a service business, it means that you have some element of humans who are involved in delivering your stuff. And if you have humans involved in delivering your stuff, those costs have a baseline. You can't drive that down lower than what someone is required to use to eat, which means the only things you can really do is develop superior process or technology, which is basically the alternative of this, which is those big companies that you hear of that have zillions and zillions of customers, almost all of them are software driven. Now, the other big companies that exist out there, almost all of them have tremendous LTV because they're not software. So they have to win on customers loving them and buying for life. And that's the other game. And I'll give you some cool examples you probably have heard of. All right, so just some little appetizers. All right, and so functionally, the reason this is important is because the only way that you can grow a business is you either get more customers or we make them worth more. That's it, right? There's nothing else to it. And so as a quick we'll do some little math equations in a minute, but if you're curious about your own business, the way to know where your business is going to get to is sales velocity time LTV. That should equal your hypothetical revenue of what you should be doing if you persist at that level indefinitely. And so some of you will be growing, some of you will be shrinking based on this metric or this equation. And we'll walk through a bunch of examples to show you how I use this in business every day. Now, that being said, you need to make customers worth more sometimes in order to get more customers. And so for some of you guys, you're like, I would get more customers, but I can't afford to get more customers. Well, that's because your LTV is not high enough, right? This is why it's a ratio. It's why there are many variables that affect business in general and also many that affect LTV, but LTV affects everything else. And so here's the truth. Assuming Alex is blurry and words aren't lined up with his mouth. Anyone else have this? I don't know what he's talking about. Okay. So truth, assuming your leads are priced within industry averages, your sales process doesn't suck, when you close, your cash flow covers CAC, assuming these things, it's a lot of assumptions, mind you, you aren't getting as many leads as you want because, drumroll please, you can't afford to, aka you make too little per customer. And so here's a hypothetical for you to frame this. If you could spend $1 million to acquire a customer, you probably wouldn't have a lead gen issue because you could afford to go to the traffic store and buy as much traffic as you wanted. And that's the idea. That's where we want to get to. And so this is what we're going to fix today. But before we do, I want to make sure that we're solving the correct problem for your business right now. Moves us to our next TikTokification of our bullets. So here's how to know really quickly if LTV is your constraint. So can you handle more customers? Yes or no? If yes, can you afford to get more? Yes or no? If no, is it because leads cost you much? Which you would know if you're industry averages, if you were above industry average. Are you converting too few? Which you would be below the benchmark of that mechanism. So when we sell in person, we sell 10% of people walk in the door rather than 30. That would be a good guess there. We do webinars and we get 5% to buy. We should probably be at 10 to 15% as long as the people who are showing up at the webinar are good. Things like that. You're not making enough from them. How would you know? Well, you have industry averages also for lead LTV to CAC ratios, but also lead costs. And so if your CAC is the same as industry average, but you're unable to afford it, you likely do not make enough money per customer, or do you not have the cash flow to cover it, right? So all of what we talked about last time in terms of the sales implementation workshop was all about how do we increase conversion rates across the business. We covered a lot of stuff. Today, we're just going to be talking about that you're not making enough and how to fix it, okay? So here's a little side quest on increasing pipeline throughput. So if you are not supply constrained, and I just want to remind everyone of this, an increase in any part of the funnel increases throughput. All right, so for example, if we get 10%, we raise prices by 10% and we get a 10% higher conversion and we lower churn by 10%, great, we have 33% growth. All right, and so if you're like, well, which thing should I do? As long as you're not supply constrained, any improvement will grow the business, as long as you're not supply constrained. Which, to be fair, is probably why more businesses are looking for customers, right? Which I guess I'll put a little caveat there, with the exception of done-for-you service businesses, which is a bunch of you guys where you usually are supply constrained. All right, so a little visual for constraints, and let's rock. So, with that being said, there are many equally effective ways to grow lifetime gross profit. The path that I hope that you select at the end of our time today, or the one that I would select for you, should be the highest risk-adjusted return path based on your existing skills and resources. So if some of these strategies I talk about, you're like, I don't know if I could pull that off. I don't know if that would work with my industry. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But if there's something that you're like, I could totally pull that off, I would feel better for you if that's the one you start with first. Now, big picture, zooming out. If we're being real, if I had to pull you in the corner, big brother hug style, I'd probably say something like, if we're being real and LTV really is your constraint, you probably just need to sell better customers, charge more, provide fewer better things, remind people religiously to buy again, and have something extremely expensive to sell them, or at least anchor them high so that when they look at your next price, it looks low by comparison. Probably that's what you need to do in order to increase LTV. But we're going to dive into lots and lots of details talking about each of these items. But if I had 30 seconds to say it, that's probably what you have to do. Which brings us naturally to why knowing this matters. Okay, so now we're getting this a little bit more tactical stuff. So I remember we started Prestige Labs, which is our supplement company. And I want to say a year later or so, I had the brilliant idea to start Done For You Meals. And that company is pretty simple. We would just ship meals to people who bought them through the gyms as a distribution base. And I thought to myself, man, we've got, 1,000 gyms who, let's say they participate, and of 1,000 gyms, they each have 200 customers. If we can get 30% of those customers, that's gonna be 60 customers per gym. So that's 6,000 customers, and the average customer is gonna spend like $600 a month. I could have like a $3.6 million per month business day one of launching this meals bar. I was like, this sounds like a great idea. I should do this. And it didn't roll out exactly like that. We ended up doing like 600,000 a month. But my team was like, oh my God, these like meals are so expensive. We should just run ads for it. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do that. And so we start running ads. And of course, we start making money back. And the team comes to me and they're like, hey man, we should spend way more money because we're putting, $10 in and we're making $20 back. And I was like, okay. And they're like, hey, can we go spend 100 grand? Now, here's, you guys probably know where this is going, anybody who's like sold products. So the question is, how much money we make on meals, right? So we would spend $9 fully baked to get a meal delivered. We charged 10. Now, you might be like, why would Alex charge something so low? It was one of the only businesses in my life that I got into, and I was like, this is a pure commodity. I had no idea how elastic food price demand really is. So it was a great learning lesson for me. I started these meals at $15 per meal, and the demand was significantly smaller. Now, when we lowered to $10, eventually the margins were up, then I stopped the business. But the point was, I was making 10% gross margins in this business, okay? And so when they said, hey, we spent $10 and sold $20 of meals, it means they took $10 of bottom line to create $2 of gross profit. And so how many meals would they really have to sell with that $10 in order for it to be profitable? At least 100. And that would just be break even. And so this is just a little warning, which is that you don't want this to happen to you, and this is how you can make $100,000 mistakes in the blink of an eye without knowing your numbers, without knowing the math. So, here's a little physical product example. So, some of you guys have physical products. I think it's like 20% of you guys, so I'll hit this quickly. The vast majority were services, and so I'll hit that in a lot more depth and some more examples. But physical products, you got a $5 thing, $20 price tag, your gross margins are going to be 75%. All right? The gross profit will be $15. Now, the reason I wanted to just first off say this is you should already understand the gross profit concept with the physical product one. That one's much easier than some of the other ones we're going to go through. But the reason I wanted to highlight this is that language matters. So gross margin is a percentage. Gross profit is a number. So gross profit is 15%. Gross margin is 75%. All right, so $15, 75%. $15, 75%. And so if someone says, what's your gross profit? Sometimes they'll say gross profit margin, and they'll still mean the percentage, right? But what's your gross profit? They're usually asking for the absolute amount you make per unit sold. All right, so if you ever hear me talk about that or ask you on the phone because you're in the Hormozy hotline, this is what I'm talking about. And when you talk to each other, I prefer everybody at least use the right language. Okay, and if you're like, this is kind of interesting, I'd love to learn more about this. The Lost Chapters book, if you hopefully you've read it, I think in the first 5 chapters, 3 of them are payback period, gross profit, and CAC in a lot of detail. Okay. Now, see, easy. TikTok. We're moving and grooving, okay? Now, this is the first concept that I'm going to talk about that I don't think anyone here has heard me discuss. Well, I know no one has because I haven't discussed it. All right, but it's a topic that I think about a lot. And I think a lot about it when I'm pricing anything. And if price is one of the strongest drivers for lifetime value, then you should pay attention to this. All right. So let me give you a quick rule of thumb that I've talked about before, which is some of you guys have heard of my gross margin rule of thumb for knowledge services. So who here, real quick, in the chat has heard me say, hey, if you sell any kind of like white collar service, any kind of knowledge-based service, like say you're at a marketing company and you sell marketing services, that would be a knowledge base. You're not like laboring, right? 80%. You guys have heard this? Okay, good. So I want to highlight why this is so important in terms of gross margin. So if business A is running 65% gross margins and business B is running 80% gross margins, they both make the same revenue. But business A makes 15% net profit margins, let's say hypothetically. How much money would business B make? Twice the profit. This is why it's so important. So it's not only 15%, it's double your take home in terms of the difference between the two gross profit margins. And the reason I find this so important is that I used to fight gym owners on this concept. I would do the math for their business and I'd be like, listen, you're at 65% gross margin, you need to be at 80. They're like, I mean, it's 15%, it's not that, I'm not that far off. I'm like, bro, you are twice the money you make far off. This is a gigantic deal. And I'm going to show you, like, this is where this is going to get really fun. I'm going to show you some cool shit. But I want to make sure that you guys feel this way. Like, if there's ever something that I obsess over, it's the gross margins of my business. Because it is the amount of money that is left over to pay for everything else after you've already paid for you've covered the cost of delivery. So this is the money you use to run and grow the business. This is why gross margin is so important. This is why gross profit is so important. This is why I'm so obsessed with it. And it's the core component of lifetime value. Because it's just gross profit over and over again is lifetime value. But gross profit is more or less what we're actually talking about today. All right, how do we make more? Now, I'll give you one account work service version, and then we're going to talk about improving this, okay? So, delivery team. So let's say you do any kind of account work. So this is like I have, I'll just use marketing agents because everyone understands that. So let's say that I have 5 people who are on my delivery team for my marketing agency that I do SEO, whatever. And so let's say that my 5 people I pay $1 million in total. So $200,000 a head, hypothetically. Okay. And the number of customers that my team can handle, those 5 people, is 50. All right, 50 customers. I told you it's a little bit more mathy. Hopefully you guys are good with it. 5 people, $1 million in payroll, 50 customers, what they can handle. Okay, now the monthly price for my services, let's say it's $5,000 a month. Okay? So that means that I'm making $60,000 a year per customer, and I got 50 customers, which means I'm making $3 million a year. Hopefully everyone here can track so far. All right? 50 customers, $60,000 a year, $3 million in total revenue. Okay, and I got $1 million in comp for my team. All right, now I'm going to assume for simplicity's sake that comp includes the software, includes the rent, just everything. Like it cost me $1 million with the 5 people mostly being payroll to cover my nut. Okay, now my gross margins in this business, gross margins, not net, gross margins will be 67%. Okay, 67%. Now, some people would see that and be like, that's an amazing business. I think that's fine. I just prefer, my rule of thumb is 80% or higher. And no, Perry, because I get this all the time. So think about CAC, cost of acquiring a customer. So do you think sales is more involved in acquiring a customer? Or do you think it's involved in delivering for a customer, which is lifetime value? Sales commission is going to be in CAC, cost of acquiring a customer. All marketing spend, all the sales guys that you have, the commissions, marketing managers, whatever, all of that's going to be in cost to acquire a customer. This happens to be a marketing agency, so the delivery of marketing services to customers is going to be LTV. Hopefully it doesn't confuse anybody. Back to my point. 67% gross margins, all right? So my gross profit is $2 million, right? Spent 3, I've got $2 million in delivery. Now, does this business make $2 million in net profit? Probably not, because we probably got to pay sales commissions. We got to pay marketing spend to get these new customers in. Probably pay a bunch of other shit, right? That comes up. Maybe the owner wants to buy a Lamborghini. That comes out of there too, right? And he expenses it. All right, whatever it is. But we've got 67%, $2 million gross margin. Most people, if you were to show this on a normal network, they would see this and say, those are great gross margins. I believe this is like, if there's anything that I can try and help with, and like, I think these types of videos will be shown in the future of me saying this stuff right now. You will get what you tolerate. If you accept that 67% is good enough, then that's what you get, right? If I say that I want to run a 50% margin business, real tough at 67, because you got to pay everything else in 17%. Everything else in the business in 17% if you've got 67% gross margins. That, again, that might sound good to someone who does not know or doesn't want to make as much money. And that's fine. But like I like if whatever I've accomplished has been in any way useful for you, then I'm telling you how I do this. So, if we want that 80%, and I want some of you guys to be going through your own math right now of what your gross margin is, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how do we get it to 80, right? So 80% of the businesses that are here are service businesses, right? Now, not all of them are knowledge service. There's home services. That's a little different. But for many of you guys are knowledge-based services. You have some skill that you do for other people. How do we get it to 80%? All right, how would we actually walk through this? Now, independent of whether you are in a knowledge service business, the concept and the strategies that I'm going to walk through in terms of improving it will be the same. So whether you're home services, whether you're whatever type of service you do, the strategies will be the same. The 80% goal might be different, but this is knowledge services because probably at least a third of you guys are specifically in that. You consult in some way. This is the walkthrough. So we're going to cover 13%, right? How big of a difference is that 13% going to be? You guys will see how big of a difference it is. So pay extra attention here. So how do we get this to 80%? This business, the way it currently stands. Option A, we can take our total cost of goods, right? And we multiply it by 5. That's a simple way of doing it. Okay, well, if it cost me whatever it cost me, we said $1 million was the kind of cost of goods sold for these services. If I say I want 80%, we multiply by 5. And that means that we got to make $5 million in revenue and keep this cost basis the same. So if we divide that by the number of customers that we have, so for example, $5 million, 50 customers, means we have to make $100,000 per customer if we don't change the number of customers. And so if we divide that by 12, that means that we have to take our monthly rate from $5K to $8,300 a month, right? On average. On average. That's what we have to do to get this 80% gross margin. Now, I want to be very clear about a very important point. Remember when that silly business owner, right, said 67% and 80 really close to each other. Well, let me ask you a question. If that business that had that $1 million in overhead, right, instead of making $3 million, was making $5 million in top line with the same cost basis, do you see that as a significantly different business? Please let me know if you understand this in the chat. Like, this might be one of the most powerful concepts that has made me extraordinarily wealthy in my life, and I'm trying to pass it on. And I think I have a different way of teaching it today. So I'm excited about this. Yes. 13%, right? You're like 67 and 80. It's not that far off, right? It's close. It's close. 67 versus 80 is the difference between 3 million in top line with $1 million in cost and 5 million. You dig? Big difference. And so now we talk about how we actually get that to happen. Right? So number one is that we can get the average customer to go from $5,000 a month to 80, 83, 33, 33, whatever, repeating. All right? 100K a year. That's option A. Option B is we add another $2 million of customers at the old price without adding any headcount. Okay? So if we have $60,000 per year per customer, a $2 million increase means that we have to add 33 new customers to the business. So we go from 50 active customers to 83 active customers, but we can't hire more people. So in both scenarios, we achieved our $5 million top line revenue with the same cost basis in terms of delivery. So Junior, whoever said you're apparently slow, all right? I'm gonna like this is what I want to take time. Like if I can get you to get this, it will make a big difference in your business and your life. Okay. Let's do these live because sometimes it's easier to follow along, not on slides with math. All right. So let's say I sell, I don't know. Okay. So I sell, mark whatever. I sell services. All right. I sell online services of some kind of businesses. All right. I charge $5,000 per month. That's what I charge. This is my price. My cost basis, what it costs me to deliver this $5,000 a month in the first scenario is, I have to do my math. Shoot. Someone give me 33% of 5,000. 35,000? Anyone? Thank you. Okay. So this cost me $1,650 per month in cost. All right. So this is my price. This is my cost. And this is business A. I don't know if I've matched the letters, but just go with whatever letters I put on here. Okay. This is scenario 1. Scenario 2, I have the same $5,000 per month in price point, but I get my cost of goods sold down to $1,000 per month. Gross margins here, 67%, which is the space here, right? So if, can you subtract this for me? What's that? 350 plus 2,000, 3,000, 3,250. All right. So this is my gross profit. And so here I've got $4,000 per month in gross profit. You guys tracking? 5,000 top line. I've got, this is my cost basis. This is what my gross profit is. So my gross margin oops, that's a percentage. 67%, 80%. Again, when you see these two numbers, they look very similar. But in order to get this number to be this number in terms of percentages, we have to do something to the business. Now, in order to get the customers, let's say we keep our cost the same. If our cost stays the same, which is my first version of this guy, this one, if we keep our cost the same, so this is what we freeze, and if this is getting too complex, I was at 3350. All right. Did I say 3250? Fuck it. You guys get where I'm going at. My bad. That's 33. There you go. If we freeze this number, right, then we have to increase our price so that we can get to 80%. So option A that we have is that we go from 5K average to 80, whatever, 8,300, 33, whatever, per month. So we have to get our average customer to increase by 33, whatever, per month. It's a big change, right? Big change. But we're trying to make big money. So we got to make big change. We got to not think like small business owners, because that's what keeps small business owners small. Option B is we say, okay, we're going to freeze the price. So this will now stay the same. But what we're going to do is increase the number of customers so that we can divide this back more times so it gets down to 1,000. So we have to take our 50 customers we currently have, and we now have to be able to deliver to 83 customers with the same total cost basis, as in like we're not increasing the total number of headcount in the business that we need to have to deliver the services so we can increase our margins. So this is where right now in your business, and there's two ways, there's a third that I'm going to show you in a second. Can I get some like yeses in the chats if this makes sense so far? In terms of either of these are the ways that you can improve the margin. So if we went from 67 to 80%, version A, we get everybody to agree to start getting paid 83, 33, whatever per month. Or B, we keep the same team that's doing delivery and we add 33 customers. Okay. Okay, getting ready for price. Keeney, there is no price raise genie in this one. Don't worry. I told you. I'll keep on your toes. I'll keep on your toes. All right. Okay. So with through option B, which we just covered. So what about option C? All right. So remember, some of you guys, the reason I said today at the very beginning, I want you to know what your gross profit is. I want you to set a goal for where you want it to be, and then I want you to take action to fill the gap. All right. I just gave you 2 strategies. I'll give you a third. Don't worry, we have a lot more stuff today. All right. But these are more high level, and then we're going to talk way more tactics in terms of underneath of each of these options. Okay. Now, yes, Peter. So simply add more customers without increasing expenses or charge more. And yes, exactly. Love this for us. Okay. Option C. To get that 80%, we can upsell a better quality service that no one else has to deliver. All right. So no added cost basis to the business. So a version of that would be, and this will be, we're gonna do this as an exercise. Let's say we add a new service level at $10,000 a month. So we're currently at 5. We're going to add it. We're going to say we have another service tier because we got to get to 8333, right? So we're like, how are we going to get to 8? You're like, fuck, how am I going to get to 8333? Like, all right, I'll add a new service level. These are the decisions that you guys are making. Like, this is the real shit. This is actually the decisions you guys make. You want to offer a new tier, offer a new service, offer a new product. This is how you make the decisions. So let's say we did that 10,000. If we wanted that 10,000, we would have to have a 66% take rate. So imagine you got $5,000 a month service. You'd have to get 2/3 of your 50 customers to say, yes, I'll take a $10,000 a month upgrade, and that way I can get to 80% gross margins. All right? Does everyone understand that one? So here I just said everyone has to make, we got to make 8333. This is a version of how to accomplish it. You start an upsell that doesn't cost you any more, just to keep things simple. You have an upsell that's $10,000 a month, and you say, hey, we can also do this other stuff for you. We'd have to get 2/3 of people to take that. Yes, Crystal. So the reason that 66% would have to take it is that 33 out of 50 were at $10,000 a month, and then 17 were at 5. We get the same average. It's just accomplishing the 83-33 average this way. That's what it is. The second way we can do this is that we could add, this isn't the second way. There's unlimited ways to accomplish this. I'm giving you 2 versions. A different way of doing this would add a new tier of $25,000 a month. So instead of 10, it's 25,000. Yes, like fractals, Muhan. Yes, Neo. 18% would have to take, I should have probably asked, who can guess how many people would have to take this out of 50 in order for this to accomplish our goal? Kevin, well done. 18%. All right. So 9 out of 50 would get us to around 80% gross margins. It's like a fraction because the numbers aren't clean. All right, but around 80. All right. So this is the mega question. This is the real shit. Which of those 2 options do you feel is actually more likely? You wish you paid attention to math in school. Bro, all right, I'm going to hit this because I'm going to talk to that. But yes, C, okay, so most of you guys to C2. Gilbert, you wanted to be actually Wayne, Peter, you guys wanted to be rebels. I guess it's not really rebels anymore. So we have some C1s and C2s. Yes, Whitney nailed it. Very, very uncommon to get a 66% take rate on upsell that's like that. You can have it on the front end if it's lower ticket. I won't get into the details. It is more likely, if you were in a B2B service months into servicing somebody at a $5,000 a month price point, that you would be able to get 9 of 50 to take the 25,000 because pricing is fractal. And I'm going to go really deep on this today. All right. But the reason I think this is so important is that many of you guys do not think through your pricing this way. And as a result, you do not make as much money as you want, and you can't outcompete people. This is important. And so to Sal, who said, we wish you paid attention to math in high school or whatever, Like we're just doing multiplication and division here. There's nothing like this is fifth grade math. Okay. And a reason I think this is important is that when I was coming up, the last math that I learned was eighth grade. And for all 4 years of high school, I cheated in math. I just copied other people's stuff, just being 100% real. That's what I did. And that's how I got through it. I learned enough, but like I never felt like I just crammed for tests. I would figure out the problems that I needed to, and that's how I got through it, right? Um, I mean, I was in AP calculus, which is hilarious. But I big, borrowed, and stole, and I figured my way out. But I definitely didn't learn it. It was only when I realized that my weakness in math was going to prevent me from making money that I all of a sudden found this motivation to make math interesting that I never had had before in my life. I was a language and writing guy. That was my thing. And so I would encourage you to just think like this, just understanding how to do math will help me make significantly more money. I call this money math though, so it's a different thing, right? There's math, there's money math. Money math's lots of fun, right? Normal math kind of sucks. Like Susie has 6 crayons, you have 2 crayons, and you hate Susie. So how much do you hate her, right? Who knows, right? But if it's like, if you got to sell something for $100 and the difference is it costs you 20 on the $100 you're selling versus it costs you 33, there's a very, very big difference in the types of businesses and how much those businesses can scale as a result. Okay. So, yeah, Abby, thank you. I 150% hater. Yeah, poor fuck Susie, right? Okay. So, I probably shouldn't have gone back to back like harder topics, but we're going to go back to back on harder topics. I've been most excited to talk about the thing I just went over and this for all of you guys today because I think that like these will be the most real things. Of course, I got tactics. I'll give you tactics. But like, these are the concepts that should inform the decisions that you're going to make for your business. All right, here we go. All right. So, one of the most important concepts for LTV is this, is the fractal nature, 80-20, Pareto's principle. Okay? So, it's an Alex drawing, yes. 80-20. So when you square that, then you have 64-4, and then you have 51-1. So what does this actually mean? That just looks like a fancy, bunch of doodads, all right? So the top 20% of customers create 80% of revenue. 1 out of 5 people, 80%. Wild. Within that top 20%, another 20%, which would be the top 4% of customers, generate 64% of revenue. The tax system works like this. The top 20% of those, so the top 0.8%, 1-ish percent, generate 51% of total revenue. Yes, Tony, Pareto squared. Now, this is true if and only if, because some of you might be looking at your own businesses and be like, well, that's not true for me. Why isn't it true for your businesses? Why is it true for tax brackets, but not businesses? Because you haven't given these people a way to pay more. The tax system has a perfect way of getting people to pay more. The more you make, the more you pay. It's a perfectly efficient system, with the exception of the loopholes, right? That is how it works. And even with the loopholes, those numbers still hold. By the way, nice Kemp Not comment. I did not cheat off Kemp Not, by the way. Kemp hated me. Kemp always asked for more homework from the teacher. I just wanted, anyways, Kemp, shout outs wherever you are. Hope you're doing well. Anyways, so look at your customers right now. And you might have some that come back and bought more times or stayed longer or paid more or some combination of those things that made them more valuable than other customers. And so even if all of your customers, quote, pay the same price, if we were to take that monthly nut and turn it horizontal and say, let's look at how long some of these customers have been paying, you'll probably see the same dynamic. Now, this is true, obviously, the longer you're in business. If you're at month 3 in business, you're not going to see this nature because it hasn't been around long enough. But it will probably slowly over time shift to these types of numbers, okay? And so the idea here, though, is that instead of having it happen by accident, we can design our business to make it happen on purpose. And so this should inform product and pricing decisions. All right. So let's think about this from a layering perspective, 1 through 5. Now, I'm going to give a bunch of warnings about this. I'm not saying everybody here needs to have 5 layers to your business. I'm saying that you can work towards something like this over time because you'll be able to see how much more revenue and profit it can unlock. All right. So this is taken from more publicly traded companies in terms of profit contribution. Okay. So think about this. Now, I think I actually took this from Shopify. All right. So that's a company that has a very, very efficient monetization engine, right? Because they have different tiers of subscriptions, number one. And then two, they also get paid in basically rev share functionally because they're a payment processing company. So they get, you process $100 million, they make more money than if you process $10, right? But on top of that, you have different levels of tiers or subscriptions that go with that. And so look at this, 80% of their customers, right, often break even or lose a little bit of money. Layer 2, we're already at top 20%. We're already at top 20%. Typically, the representative multiple of the base in terms of how much bigger the price is, 5 to 10x. And if you always want to be conservative, you can just say whatever my base is, at every level I want at least 5x each level. Okay? So I'll give you guys. Actually, I'm getting excited because I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, but look at the price representation. So you might see 4%. 4% of customers. How am I going to make money on 4% of customers? Well, when you multiply it by 100, it's actually 400% of what you're getting from your base. And look at top 1% and the top 0.2%. Right? This is how you make money in business. Most businesses do not understand this. And as a result, they do not make money or make as much as they should. So, see if I get this to work. Look at what this is for me. If Hormozi was it, I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. Well, shout out to Jay-Z. Okay, so layer 1 of my brand is school. It's $100 a month, right? School, in time, will probably develop a tier that's in there. L1, L2, L3. See it? See it now? You guys feeling this? It's kind of interesting. And then we have portfolio companies, which are the top slice of that. I really like if I can actually get you to fully grasp this, not just grasp it, but apply it to your own business. When people have upsells, right? They'll say, "Hey, I've got my first thing, it's $100 a month, and my upsell is going to be $300 a month." Why? If we know 20% of people have 5 to 10 times the willingness to pay, then our upsell should be $500 to $1,000 a month. That's where we got to be. And so people mess up their pricing and as a result mess up the service delivery because they don't figure out their gross margins either. And because they don't understand how take rates work, they expect 66% of people are going to do that take rate when it's only going to be 20. But they don't price it like 20 are going to take it. They think, oh, 66% of people are going to take my upsell. Of course they're not. It'll be 20, maybe. So you got to make it worth it. Because if 20% of people take your double the price, who cares? Now, I want to break a couple beliefs. I was so excited to do this workshop for you guys. I love this stuff. I really think, yes, Kevin, you can absolutely skip layers. I want to be very clear here. These layers is a perfect monetization business. Most businesses, in order to actually build out the entirety of all the layers of all the tiers, it will take you many years to do that. And so the idea here is like pick the two or like this is like why does high ticket in general tend to make people more money than low ticket? Because they just skip to the tiers that automatically make more money with less operational drag. Taking care of 20 customers is easier than taking care of 2,000, even if the revenue is the same. Okay. So this is a belief breaker for you guys. I have conversations with business owners literally every week because it's what I do. It's my living. Um, and one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts is the idea of industry standards. Okay. And I will tell you, this is a real conversation that happened. There was a company that I recently met with that was 500, it's $500 million company. Okay. $500 million company, very efficient, very old school model, new business, old model. All right. So big money business. All right. So I met with the chiefs. I met with the leaders of the business. And the entrepreneur who runs the business wanted me to look at certain components of how they do things in terms of acquisition and stuff like that. And what I walked them through was their acquisition process and the things that they needed to change. And when I walked through that process, there was a lady who was in charge of probably at least half of that process, kind of fell into her purview who was there, is that she kept repeating, well, we're industry standard. She's like, I mean, we're meeting industry standards. We're meeting industry standards. She got flustered. She got offended because I was saying, well, this sucks and these numbers aren't good. They go, we're meeting industry standards. And so I paused and I was like, do you wake up every morning and just want to say like, I have an average company. We are average. Half the people are better than us, half are worse. We are average. Who gives a shit? I don't know about you, but I didn't get in the game to be average. The average business is average. The average American is overweight, they're in debt, they're divorced, they're depressed. And so the average business makes almost no money. Why would I use industry standards, industry averages at all? And I say this because I have people who will push back on some of these margin things that I talk about and say, well, in HVAC, it's different. Well, in SEO, it's different. Well, when we've got XYZ in trucking, it's different. In logistics, it's different. No, it's not. And I made a short about this, but I had a conversation with a billionaire mentor many years ago, and he said this thing that always stuck with me. He said, profit is unnatural. He said it is common and normal for people when money is there to spend it. This is why most people don't have any. And he said, so if you have a company and it makes money, it actually starts to succeed, that success has this constant pressure of normalcy that fights against it. And so there has to be someone who holds the fucking line and is like, we will not spend more, but we will keep making more. We will get more customers and we will not hire more, right? We will find a way to service these customers better than we did the last customers and add. And so the rules that I would encourage you to live by is that unless the laws of physics prevent it, consider it mental handicaps that your competitors get to live by and measure themselves by. Not a suggestion, recommendation, and certainly not a fucking law. Industry standards are a handicap that you let your competitors use and think they're doing well. That is the gift that we get as soon as you can get out of this belief. Because if you want to be average, use industry averages, and most industry average businesses suck. If you want to be the best, use physics and math and then work backwards. Okay. Matt, how do you know what your customers will buy at those price points? One, you can try it. Two, you can ask, and you can also just assume. And so this is actually an important point. So whenever you make decisions in business, the vast majority of the time, you will have incomplete data. And so to assume that you must have complete data in order to make decisions will make you too slow as a business. Because data and attribution typically lags by about a year from execution. All right, so the best you'll get is directional data, and the rest you'll have to fill in off of first principles and patterns that you remember from the past. And so the reason that fundamentally like entrepreneurs who are good at entrepreneurship are excellent decision makers is that they live the most grounded lives in reality. I don't think people will buy that. They have good guesses based on what they've observed. And having these rules of thumb, having these patterns they've recognized, the reason this might be one of the more significant things that I've showed you over here is that this becomes a pattern that you can recognize going forward. This is a pattern. This is how customers, their ability to pay. And this syncs with income. Think about this. The top 1% earn so much more money. Right. Then sell them something so much more expensive. Okay. So, as a result of everything that I just covered, I want you to have gross margin targets. As you get bigger, you can have profit center leaders with their own gross margin targets. This is how we do this. All right. And what will happen is that as you start really decentralizing, I'm talking probably for bigger businesses here, but like as you start decentralizing decision making, this can guide their purchasing and reinvestment decisions. And so if they go to finance and say, hey, I want to buy these new cameras for media, right? Well, they say, hey, you have a gross margin target. And to be fair, I said minimum is 80. Your gross margin target could be 87. It could be 92. It could be whatever you reason with math. You say, I think that we could have 10 people who could run this thing. I think I'm gonna have to pay them this. Software in total should cost this. And I think we can get to this many customers. So this is what the gross margin should be. And then you draw that line and you say, this is the target. And then if they want to spend money that decreases them off that target, you just say, no. So I said earlier that in order to have all of these layers, right, it typically takes time. So Apple is, I don't know, 50, 60 years old. Shopify is probably at least 20. I don't know how old they are, but they're oldish. McKinsey is like 50 years old. And so I don't say this as though all of you guys need to do this tomorrow. That is not my point. But at least if you can be aware of the relationship between your current level and the next level, just even that understanding, right? And if you didn't get any of the stuff I said, this is the most boiled down rule of thumb. Every upsell, you're gonna get about 20% of people to take it. If you're gonna get 20% of people to take it, you gotta do at least a 5x in price. That's the rule of thumb at every level. So you've got a $100 thing, at least $500 for the next thing. You got a $500 thing, at least $2,500 for the next thing. You got a $2,500 thing, at least $12,500 for the next thing. Right? Easiest ways to think about it. And why is that important? Because if 20% of people buy something at 5 times the price, you double the revenue, which means that every layer, every tier doubles the revenue of the business. I mean, that's kind of not bad, right? Okay. So Shopify, I'm not going to read all these to you, but the reason I put these three up there is that I look at big old businesses who are very successful as great things to model off of to see like, what does this look like when it's right? What does this look like when it's taken all the way to the extreme? And I did it from different, so you've got software with Shopify, you've got physical products with Apple, you've got services with McKinsey, right? And so all three of these companies are massive companies, billions and I guess trillions, right, for Apple. And so this does work all the way up, right? All these are older companies. Now, warnings and disclaimers. You don't do this all at once. It will take years. Price it so it actually makes a difference and matches the new ICP or avatar. Like I just said, bottom line, whenever you do an upsell, 20% are going to take it 5x the price. If you do a good job, right? If you explain it well and it's actually what they want. But if the things work out the way they should, 20% will take it 5 times the price. Okay? You incur significant operational drag to add new layers / customers. So I make this point to say that it will cost you likely effort and resources to do this. So you have to make it worth it, right? If you add a whole other tier and it adds 20% to the business and it's twice the work, it's like now I doubled my work and I got 20% more. I don't know. That's kind of lame. So price it like you mean it. So if you're going to add an upsell to increase your LTV, price it like you mean it. All right, I said we cover this fastly. Was that pretty cool? Was that interesting? That was one that I have not gone that deep on that concept before, and I finally had like all the pieces in a way that I thought I could explain it. I know we did a lot of math, but yeah, welcome to money. Okay, so let's do the downsell trap. All right. It's a trap. All right. So what do I mean by this? So I had a lady, I think, asked me this a while back. She said, "Hey, I've got a business that sells biz op stuff, and 40% of the people who get on the phone with are unqualified." Now that has other issues that are kind of like tied into that, but she said, 40% are unqualified. Okay, and so here we go. Should I offer a downsell to those people to make some of my money back? A reasonable question. What I want to walk you through is how I would like you to think about these decisions. And I say this because many of you have, these are the real business decisions. Like, these are the decisions that we make as entrepreneurs. And you've got to make the right call. All right? And if you don't understand this stuff, you will routinely not see reality as it is and be totally befuddled and beside yourself by the fact that nothing you want to have happen happens in reality. You do not see reality clearly. And as a result, your ability to predict what will happen next is poor. And so life feels like this back into this gauntlet of getting hit over and over and over and over again, somehow always surprised, somehow always not expecting something like this to happen. When if you actually had good pattern recognition, you would be able to see, obviously that was what's going to happen. And the more obviously that's what's going to happen is the number of doors that you don't have to walk through. It's like, I don't need all human experiences. I don't need to try heroin. I don't need to go to prison. There's some experiences not worth having. There's enough hardship on the stuff that is worth trying, right? Okay, so let's back to the math. 60% of customers are qualified to get on calls, according to this lady, right? 40% were not. Okay, so real quick in the chat, should she offer a downsell? And I haven't even given any specific. Maybe I'll give you a little more specifics. All right, so they sell a $10,000 core offer, and they're considering a $2,000 downsell. All right, think about this. $2,000 downsell, that seems reasonable. No, I don't. And whoever just asked, David, so do they have capacity? Let's assume they have capacity. Let's say it's a course, all right? Unlimited capacity, all right? Thank you, Travis, for the very emphatic fuck no. Kate says yes. Let's see. Let's see. So should we? If you trust your sales reps. Okay. Here is the downsell trap. So if 60% are qualified on the phone, let's say we have 75% offer rate, 45 out of 60. Let's assume we have 100, right? And we close 25%, 15 out of 60 on our qualified numbers. All right, you got 15 times $10,000, 150 grand. That's what you're making on your core offer, okay? What you're making in your core offer. Now we've got 40% that are DQ'd on the phone. Let's say we offer 30 of 40 of those people, and we close 30% of these, so even higher. I'm giving the downsell a higher close rate, which is not even realistic. But let's just say we had a higher close rate, so 9 out of 40. Let's just say 9 out of 30. 9 times 2,000, the downsell, is 18 grand. So the question is going through that extra effort worth a 12% increase in revenue? Right, Bella. This is my point. This is why we do this. These are the real decisions you have to make as a business owner. Right. 12%. Now, there is an argument for this. But wait. Let me see if I cover this in the next one. Okay, so this is the point that I will make. Actually, I think I covered another slide. I'll keep going. So what we have to cover is not should we or should we not do it. It's also compared against what? So wouldn't it be easier if we just raised the price by 20%? Like we wanted to get we got a 12% increase in revenue here, right? For all these calls, all this work, right? So what if we just raise the price by 20%, right? We go through the whole thing. Let's say our close rate drops from 25 to 23, going from 10 to 12. All right, so we close fewer. We get 14 instead of 15. We make 168,000. Wait, we actually make more there. Huh, wild. That actually matches what we made before. But wait, there's more. And let's say we use the other 40% of the phone team's bandwidth to work your pipeline better and just follow up with more of the leads that you have in all of that excess time. Do you think we'd get another 2 deals across the line? Probably. And so the net better option is the $192,000 with lower complexity, clearer messaging, and better for the brand. Exactly, Simon. It's an allocation of finite resources. And so what we're covering here is the opportunity cost. And so one of the big mistakes that we make as entrepreneurs is assuming that the decision exists in a vacuum, right? Should I, like this thing could make us more money. We should do it. Compared to what? What is the price in terms of the operational complexity, the headache, the time, the energy, all of the team distraction around this new thing that we're doing? Is it worth a 12% increase in revenue? Now, you could try and make the argument of, okay, well, if we ran 12% profit, then that would double our profit. Yeah, but this would make more than that, right? Like, is it worth doing something to improve our 12% profit margins? Absolutely. Is that the best thing we should do? Probably not. So let me also talk about how this tends to happen in reality. So if you have, and I thought I had a slide in here, I might have cut it out. If you actually, anybody who's actually run a phone team, right? If you have people who are getting on the phone, right now, the ideal solution is that they shouldn't get on the phone if they're unqualified, right? But let's say, and that's why the 40% is an absurdly high percentage. If 40% are getting on the phone and unqualified, like you need to put more friction in. But even in that crazy scenario, right? Because remember, if that percentage was like 20%, it makes the number even stupider. It makes 6% revenue increase. Like who gives a shit, right? Okay, back to where we were. So if you have a phone team and you're telling them, hey, we're going to have a downsell that's $2,000 compared to our $10,000 price point. If somebody can't afford, and this is where it gets real nasty. If someone can't afford the $10,000 thing, we're going to offer them the $2,000 thing. Who here, be honest, at one point in your career, that way I won't call you out for today. At one point in your career done this? I'll raise my hand. I did it at one point in my career. Okay. Now let me know if what I'm about to share with you sounds familiar. So you tell your team, we're going to also offer $2,000 thing if they can't afford it. Guess what happens next? The team gets on, they have a qualified prospect, they offer the 10K, they get a little bit of price resistance, boom, drop down to the 2K. And what's crazy is that all of a sudden, you've got way more $2,000 sales that are coming in, and you think, oh, this downsell is working great. But then you realize that the 10Ks have gone down by 20 or 30%. Why? Because the guys now have something in their back pocket that as soon as they get pushed back, because what's the main reason? What is the main reinforcer of selling? Is it money? No. The main reinforcer of selling is, drumroll please, getting yes. That is the main reinforcer of selling. And so because salespeople, like entrepreneurs, prefer to hear yes than make money, they lower the price, which is also why most of you are underpriced. Because you're afraid of having 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 people say no to you and still make more money with fewer customers. And that is the reality of pricing appropriately. More people will say no than yes, and you will make more money and have less work. And it is hard, and that is why most people don't do it, and that is why most people don't make money. And so following up with this downsell trap, all of a sudden, not only did the downsell not make you money, the downsell lost you money because it turned 10Ks into 2Ks. You lose $8,000 for every $10,000 sale that should have happened that didn't and turned into a 2K sale. So, if you were to actually do that correctly, and there are sometimes scenarios where it makes sense, where it does work is that at the beginning of the call, you would triage. So that means that at the beginning I say, do you have at least 5 locations? No? Then you're in our not 5 location package. And then as soon as you have the clear delineation of you're either this person or this person, then you have different avatars. And then you sell the thing that is correct for that avatar, right? Now, I'll make the point, which I think comes up in a second, that I have yet to see a business get made by a downsell. Rarely. Especially if it's service, where you're having humans sell. Because the volume of unqualified should for sure be less than the volume of qualified. And so you're talking about a small percentage with a 1/5 price tag. Who cares? It's not going to move the needle. Okay. Thank God for this conversation. Thank you, Abby. Appreciate you. Okay. So never in my life have I seen a company make it on a downsell. Here are the notable exceptions. I'm glad, Natalie, this made an aha. Great. Okay. If you have a 100% automated conversion and delivery mechanism, that means the way you sell is automated and the way you deliver is automated. If both those things are true, then yeah, by all means, you can add upsells and downsells in like an e-commerce funnel or a software funnel if you're running paid ads to it. All makes sense. But if you're selling over the phone or you're selling in person, you have a person who sells the thing, it should be a small percentage of their leads that are unqualified, otherwise you're wasting their time. And if it's a small number, the only way downsells work, remember, it's all volume. So you'd have to have 5 times the opportunities to have the downsell for it to at least be even with what you're making on your core offer. And so if you don't have 5 times the at-bats of unqualified people, then it doesn't make sense. But what does make sense with that 5x? That core offer that we talked about, that $10,000 thing, what would make even more money? This is a real test to see if you actually are picking up what I've been putting down this whole time. You have a $10,000 offer. What makes the most sense? Yes, Kevin, 100%. A $50,000 offer. And then that small number is paired with a big price tag, and that's where it makes sense. Are you guys digging this? Is this making sense to you? All right, cool, good. So notable exception number 1 is automated conversion and delivery mechanisms. So e-commerce or low ticket info, media, etc. type subscriptions, that's fine. Or if you have like webinar self-liquidating offers on the front end that you're pushing people through, that makes sense, that's fine. It's automated conversion, automated delivery, that's the main point. Okay, now to give a real example to this. Lisa, can you talk about when to have a downsell offer then? I think I just did. Okay. Now, high ticket primary offer with tiny conversion and the low ticket secondary offer with massive conversion. Again, 5x, 10x the volume has to be the point here. So for example, at the launch, we had 13,500 people buy the $6,000 thing, right? School from the launch got 126,000 people at $360 a year times 20x the enterprise value. You can do that math in your own time. You dig? Yeah. People didn't get it. People missed the whole thing. They missed the whole launch. This is why most business owners don't make money, because they don't understand the game. So, how do you do it right if you're going to do it? Right off the bat, if you are going to do it, you'd have to triage and then you have to go cradle to grave. This is the best thing for this type of person, which means if they don't buy the $10,000 thing, I'm not going to sell them something inferior. If I decide up front that they're not a multi-location owner and they're a single location owner, and I have something that takes no extra time and I'm on the call, fine, you can triage. But that means that you cannot cross over. You cannot be qualified for 2 things. You decide up front, this is a $10,000 offer, and that's what I'm going for, period. Number 1. And I think I covered the story. Now, in most of those scenarios though, like that is how you would hypothetically do it well. I think the reality is, who gives a shit? Not worth it. Take that extra time to sell the $50,000 thing to the same percentage on the other side that are willing and able to take the more expensive deal. And so it is easier to just weed them out, pump more qualified, and call it a day. So, was that cool? Downsell trap? You cannot be qualified for 2 things, correct? All right. Now, so a little bit of a break. That was the break before more math. Okay, just hang with me, all right? So, woosah. All right, everyone, deep breath, deep breath. I'm glad that your mind has been melted, Max. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick little thing here. So these are some of the back of napkin equations that I do quickly when I'm trying to size up a business. So right now, this is important. If you have any kind of subscription, all right, if you have any kind of subscription business and you would like to know what your lifetime revenue is, you just take price. Savante, thank you for these markers. Just moist and violent. Okay, price divided by churn. Can they see this? Can? Okay, good. So price divided by churn. So that would mean, let's say we've got a $100 a month membership, and let's say that we have 10% churn. That means that our lifetime revenue, right, is $1,000. That's our hypothetical. All right, this is back of napkin. It's not exact, doesn't factor in cohorts, but it's back of napkin. Okay? Let's do another one. Let's say that our price is $5,000 per month and our churn is 5%. What's our LTV here? Can anyone do this math? That means we're going to make $100,000 per customer. Also, if you want another little mathy, which is not in my little sheet here. So if we have 1 over 5%, then it means we're going to have 20 months. So if I just know someone's churn and I know their price tag, I can know that the average person stays 20 months. I can know the average revenue of customers is going to be $100,000. And so yes, Kevin, good math. It's the idea. How do you estimate churn if you don't have yet 1 year in business? Brady, this is literally how you do it. This is actually the answer to your question. Because if you don't have that and you just want to have this is an extrapolation. This is extrapolated from current to forward. So you just say, I had 100 people last month. Of those 100, 95 are here this month, and therefore my churn is 5%. And then you just divide your price by the percentage, and you get your lifetime revenue. That's how that works. Now, I want to be clear. If you started with 100 last month, and then this month you have 110 customers, but you lost 20 from the original, what's your churn? 20. So it doesn't matter how many you add, you lost 20 of your 100. Well, then great, Brady. Then you have cracked it. You have revenue retention. So now we just got to make sure you stick with it. Okay. So the reason this is important is that once you have lifetime revenue, this is a little Mr. Miyagi. Once you have lifetime revenue, what do you do with it? Well, let's use that first example, which is $1,000. So if anyone here knows what their gross profit is, gross margin, tell me what your gross margin is in the chat. Just tell me what your gross margin is. 85%. All right, John Smith, you got it first. Times 85% means that our LTV, or lifetime gross profit, in this scenario will be $850. Okay? So lifetime revenue times gross profit margin. It should say gross margin. I fucked up my own slide. See, I went on my whole pontification and messed up my own slide. Your gross margin would be 85%, 850. All right, that's the LTGP, lifetime gross profit. Okay, now, here's where this gets even sexier. I know. You thought it could get sexier. I know. Believe me. So sales velocity, SV, or sales velocity, times lifetime revenue equals hypothetical revenue max. So let's say, John Smith, how many units do you sell per month of your thing? 30. All right, great. So John sells 30 things per month. And then John, what's your price point of your thing? Or if you know what your just lifetime revenue is? Do you know what that is? 10K. We'll just say 10K to make this simple. So if we know that John sells a $10,000 thing, doesn't sell anything else, zero thing else in the business, that's the lifetime revenue that he expects from a customer, all right? And he sells 30 of these a month, then we know that his business will continue and not grow past $300,000 a month. Now, with recurring revenue businesses, this becomes incredibly valuable to understand this. So I will show you some examples. All right, great. So let's say the current revenue is $1 million a month. Okay, $1 million a month. Maybe I'll do this live because maybe it'll be more fun. Okay, so we got $1 million per month is our revenue. And we've got a sales velocity of 20 per month. And price is $5K per month. And we have churn at 20% per month. Okay? What's our LTV? Rather LTR. Lifetime revenue. What's our lifetime revenue? Who can do that math? Who can do that math? Thank you, Mario. 25K. How did he get that? 5K divided by 20%. There. Okay. Now, here's where this gets even more fun. Is the company growing or shrinking? Ah, yes. Yes, Neo. It's shrinking. Shrinking. Shrinkadink. All right. How did we know that it's shrinking? With just knowing these metrics, we know the company is shrinking. Isn't this cool? If I look at a company, if you look at a publicly traded company, and you look at sales velocity, and you look at lifetime revenue, right? You can be like, wait a second, this company is going to keep going up, or this company is overvalued. It's going to go down, even though it's doing $1 million a month. Yes. So we know that 20 people are buying times, we know the maximum they're going to be able to pay us is 25K equals 500K per month in revenue. So this thing is going to shrink by half if nothing changes. So we'll stabilize there. Let's do another one. Current revenue, $1 million a month, keep it simple. Sales velocity, 10,000 customers. Sorry, excuse me, 1,000. Here, I'll give a fresh page for you guys. Yeah, let's do 10 more. All right, good. I don't think we're gonna do 10 more, but we'll do at least one more. All right, so current revenue. I'm glad you guys like this stuff because this is what I actually think about most of my days. It's like this is the math that I actually spend my time doing. Really, this is probably the closest thing to what I actually do every day. All right, so current revenue is $1 million a month. 1 million a month, great. All right, sales velocity now. Notice it's a very different type of business, 1,000 per month. Okay, this is a rate. We've got a price, which is $100 a month. And we have our LTV. Okay, our LTR, it should say LTR. Apologies. See, here I am messing my own thing up. All right, what's lifetime revenue here? Who can drop lifetime revenue? 2K? Mario, man, you're just Speedy McGee here. Did I have churn in here? Oh, I did put churn on. My bad. Churn is 5%. Okay. So what did he do again? Just divide these two. We got 2K. Okay, that's lifetime revenue. So, survey says, is the company growing or shrinking? Ah, yes. So if we got 1,000 people per month that are coming in times 2K, we should get to 2 million per month. Now, the reason that this is so valuable for everybody, yes, how to get 2K? $100 a month divided by 5% churn, which means they stay for 20 months. which means 100 times 20, 2K. You can watch that in the recording. So 5% churn. So think about it like this. 100 people start, 5% churn. Next month I got 95. Then 5% churn again the next month. Now I've got 94 point something. Next month, 5% churn. Now it's like 91 point, whatever. So it'll just continue and then slow down. It'll be this slow down, the slope will slow down. And so we'll get 20 months on average out of somebody if we have a 5% monthly churn. So $100 times 20, 2K. There we go. We have 1,000 new customers. We know they're going to pay us 2,000, $2 million a month. Now, the reason this is important is that right now, if you know what your sales velocity is, we sell X number of customers. Now, how many times have you heard me say, if you can grow a business, you only got to do one of two things. You got to sell more customers, you got to make them worth more. How do we calculate where a business is going to stop growing? We sell this many customers, they're worth this much. That's how big the business is. And so if you want to grow the business, we look at these two numbers and say, which one of these do I think I can more easily grow? Can I make this number and get us more customers at the same LTV? Can I get LTV to go up and keep the customer the same? Or can I do both? And yes, you can play with all of these things around to basically derive other pieces. So let's say, for example, let's say I know my LTV is $2,000 and I'm at $1 million a month and I want to get to $2 million a month. I would have to say, okay, well, if I want to get to $2 million and I know I've got $2,000 as my LTV, what do? Well, divide this by this and say, oh, I'm going to have to sell 1,000 customers a month. Do I think that's probable? Do I think that's realistic? This works also the same way when you're looking at upsells. Do I think this upsell will act, do I have the capacity? Now, again, this is how you plan. When I build a business, when we have a model, I say, okay, 1,000 customers a month. This is how you start spelling this out. I know we're getting a little bit off LTV, but hopefully you guys still gem. Making money still works, right? Okay, so let's say we have our 1,000 customers. We divide this out. We say, okay, I want to get to 2 million. 2 million. Okay, how do I do it? I know my 2K LTV, so I divide 2 million by 2K, which is going to give me my 1,000. Okay, so I need 1,000 customers. And I say, all right, well, I know that my sales guys on average, let's say they have 8 calls scheduled. Let's say they got 6 to show. Of the 6 that show, they close 2 deals a day. Let's say they close 10 deals a week. So they're working 5 days, hypothetically, to keep the math clean. So I'm going to 10 deals per week per rep. Okay. Now, if this was 1,000 a month, I would just make it clean and easy and say I got to get to 250 a week. Okay. So how many reps do I need? I need 25 reps. How many reps do I got? I got 10, which means I got to hire 15 more reps to get to $2 million a month. Guys seeing this now? Does this make sense? This is how we project. This is how we figure out what the hell is going on. Can I get a thumbs up in the chat? This is cool. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm glad you feel that this is sick. Okay, great. So, those are some useful LTV equations that I use every day in business. So let's talk about the arms race. So I consider LTV to be the arms race of business, provided you don't have a superior strategy like brand that would allow you to acquire customers for less. So I said there's 2 ways, there's 2 wars, right? One of the wars is making them worth more. That's what we're talking about today, right? And so I love to tell the story. So some of you guys have heard this, some of you guys haven't, which is that there was a period of time where I did a consulting day with a guy who was in my space. I made up that logo. It's not the logo. I just asked GBT to make one. And this guy had a trainer company that sold online trainer stuff, whatever. And what was interesting is that his cost of acquisition compared to mine was the same. Here's the cool other part. So his CAC was the same. So his CAC was around 2,500, which is around what Gym Launches was at the time. All right. So CAC was 2,500, and he was selling sales velocity. He was selling 50 per month. Okay. Everyone tracking so far? And he was stuck at his revenue. He was stuck at around 300,000 per month, somewhere in there. All right. Now, What do you think his business model was? So he sold a 5K thing, and I think he had some upsell that a small percentage of people took. And so all in, we can just look at that and say, okay. Also, I didn't derive this for you guys, but if you know someone's revenue and you know how many units they're selling and they're flat, as in they haven't grown at all, you can actually figure out what their value of customers is. So he didn't know what his LTV was, but I could tell you it's 6K because he hasn't grown. He's selling 50 a month and that's consistent. So he might have said, and this happens all the time, especially to you guys do this too. And so, well, I've got a couple different tiers and some people have been here a while and I've got some grandfathering in. The back of napkin easiest way is, are you stable? How many do you sell? Divide this by this. That's how much your customers are actually worth. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I thought my customers were worth 10K. It's like, nope, you actually get paid 6 because you have payment issues, AR issues, your payment plans don't actually work, people churn out the back, you have a bunch of false starts, you're not really counting. This is the real number, okay? Now, here's where this gets fun. I'll just tell you what our number was. We made that when we stabilized. In the beginning, I made 101. But as we stabilized, we made around this. So what was Gym Launch making at that time? Both competing for the same eyeballs. Both selling the same number of customers every month. One business making 7 times more revenue. Here's where this gets even more interesting. His profit in his business, he was making, I think like, I think it was around 400,000 a year, somewhere in there, in profit. And we were making, I don't know, 15-ish million, somewhere in there. So we're making 100x, no, 400K to 15, no, 60x, my bad. 60x-ish the money. This is why LTV is important. It's not sometimes making 1 time the money or 2 times the money. So like think about the difference here for a second. So we had 7 times the lifetime revenue, but we're able to make something like 60 or 70 times the net profit. Okay? Pretty neat. Pretty neat. And I think, and for everyone, you can math check me. The point is that it was big, whatever. A big amount difference. Lots of money, big number go up. Okay, so that was with 2 smaller businesses. Let me show you this example with bigger businesses. And thank you, Adrian, for making that math perfect. Okay, so why is it that Starbucks, wouldn't that increase CAC? What if they were the same price, Mustafa, but we just kept people way longer? So, as in like same upfront price, and that just we recurred way longer. Okay, so if we have generic coffee store, which by the way, I think that's from Friends, the Daily Grind. Is that what it was? I asked GPT to randomly generate a logo, but I think, was that what it was? Daily Grind? Is that a thing? Feels right? Okay, Savante says yes, so you can blame Savante if it's wrong. So if we've got Starbucks versus the Daily Grind, right? What do you think the difference between Starbucks LTV and a generic, the local coffee shop that you guys have? Does anyone here have a coffee shop that's close to you? Just give me a yes. All right. Central Perk. Yes. Nice. That's what it was. Central Perk. Nice. Okay. So you guys have a local coffee shop. Have you ever wondered why don't they have 20 of them or 50 of them? Here's why. LTV on a Starbucks customer is 15 grand. Think about that. Some of you guys are trying to sell high ticket stuff. Starbucks is making $15,000 per customer over the lifetime selling Frappuccinos for $6. Or I don't know, probably now they're probably like $20, how inflation is working. But like, right? They make so much money because they have mastered getting customers to come back and get addicted to the whole process. Now, the $2,000 I grabbed from GPT, it might be $1,000, it might be $1,500, who knows? But the point is that Starbucks is way higher. And hopefully the little demonstration I gave you earlier is that if you have 7 times LTV, right, compared to your competitors, it's not a fair fight. Like I mean, I'm just imagining just a tiny little baby fighting a very large man with a baseball bat. Like it's not a fair fight. You know what I mean? Like you want to be the guy with the baseball bat, right? Let's not use babies. Let's use something maybe like a kitten. Uh, did you say kitten? You said it. You said it first, Michael. Um, it's all jokes. No one was offended in the making of that joke. Okay, so it's fine. It's all good. All right, but I just use this because I want to illustrate how important this is and how important mastering this math is, so that you can make really good judgment decisions about what products and offerings you're going to make to your customers that are actually worth it, that will move the needle. Like, who here has made an offer and you make it, and then you're like, oh, this is going to make so much money, and then it makes very little? Probably plenty of you guys, right? And the thing is that over your career, you want to decrease the number of times it happens. Of course, you're going to miss some. But if you can just miss less consistently over time, you'll make more good calls, and more good calls compound. All right? And that's how Starbucks easily wins. Okay. So, messaging/avatar. So all of what I just covered was the theory. The first stack of these was theory. The second stack of this is tactics. All right, stactics, if you will. So let's begin. I told you this is a TikTok presentation, right? We're just going to go through our bullets. So avatar, messaging, and targeting. So if you want to make your LTV go up, let me explain this core problem that many of you probably suffer from. So I like this because it's the most classic example. It's one of the easiest businesses to start, which is a social media marketing agency, all right, SMMA. And most social media marketing agencies that begin are started by young guys who figure out how to run Facebook ads or Google search ads or whatever, and then they're told to niche down, and then they acquire some sort of customers that they do this lead gen for, and they usually do it for somewhere there between $1,000 and $3,000 a month. And in that window of price point, they usually can get to between 1 and 5 million, and then they struggle to really pass there. Why do they struggle? Because as they scale, churn eats up bigger and bigger, which means that they have to sell more and more people, which becomes very difficult because they don't have a brand or reputation. Why don't they have a brand or reputation? Because people don't stay with them long. Why don't those people stay with them long? Because small business owners are inherently volatile, right? And so when you deal with small customers, they want you to do everything because they don't know how to do anything. If you deal with a larger customer, they already have proven offers. They already have good metrics. They already have a proven funnel or sales motion. They have all of the stuff. It's already proven. And so some games are in some way unwinnable, but you can absolutely grind your way to $1 to $3 million a year, $4 million a year, whatever, and watch the margins compress as you do that, and then be like, well, what do I do? And the issue is that you will either raise your price on a customer who cannot afford it, which then increases churn, right? But it pulls cash forward, and that's usually what ends up happening. But they miss the big point, which is that they're selling to the wrong person. That price point does not match an SMB who's going to stick, right? And so what happens is their volatility becomes your volatility. So you're like, why does my business feel like this? It's because their business feels like this. And so they will cancel when they have a bad month, independent of what you do. And so if you want to fix the business, you have to pick a better customer. Real. Or there's an alternative, which is you lower the price dramatically to like $300 to $400 a month, by the way, is around the price point that an SMB will deal with something they feel like they should do and won't cancel. Usually SMBs, for anything that's like SEO, map ranking, things like that, they'll be willing to stomach a $300 to $400 a month price point, sometimes up to $500 for like 30 to 40 months. So you actually have sometimes very high LTVs. It just takes a longer period of time, but sales velocity is also usually high at that price point too, because you have higher referrals and because it's easy to make those transactions on the first decision. Kind of cool. Jeremy, I'm calling you out, bro. All right, and so the idea is we want to sell really expensive stuff to a few rich people, or sell something 100% scalable to many poor people, but nothing in between. So people, I had somebody respond to my sell to rich people post that I made yesterday. And someone's like, bro, school's $9. Sell something 100% scalable. If it's 100% scalable, by all means, sell it to everyone. But the reason I make this point and why I have to keep hitting um, on selling to fewer people is that there are operational constraints to scaling. And so it's a lot of work to manage a lot of customers. And so it's easier to serve higher end customers that will pay you more money for the same thing. And this creates more gross margin. And what do we do with gross margin? We use it to grow the business. And so most of you have humans involved in your business because you have services. And so since you cannot use tech to get your cost to zero, you go the other way. You win the LTV war. And Ariel, selling to fewer people does not reduce the value of the business. That's just not true. So, sell to the rich, they pay better. So, Ariel, just to hit this, or Ariel, not sure how to pronounce it. Nothing makes a business inherently valuable or not valuable. What does make a business valuable is revenue retention, growth, and gross margin. So if you've got, if you have customers that stay, and you make lots of gross margin, and you're growing fast, you have a valuable company. Whether you have 1,000 customers or you got 100 customers, not going to change. Doesn't matter. Now, the will concept totally applies here. The difference is that you don't want to have, you don't want to have 3 customers. But if you have the pick between a customer that you can charge 10 times the money for and a customer that you charge 1x the money for, you try to build the whole business around the 10x. I'm not saying you can't, you want to sell more of those people. You will not sell absolutely more, but you want the business to be based on that. So the goal is not have 2 whales. The goal is how do I get 20 whales or 50 whales, right? You want to make sure that you don't have key customer risk, which then increases risk for the business. Hopefully that clears that up. Okay. Now, once you have a better customer, a better avatar, then we have to be clear about our messaging. So we find the highest value cohort, and then we want to only speak to them. All right, so I'll give you a cool example of this. So you have to be willing to say no to bad customers, or you repel the ones who have the most money. This is super real. This is how you do it. People will not do this. This is why small businesses stay small, because they will not say no to money today so they can collect more money tomorrow. They will not do it. They will not sacrifice today for tomorrow, and that is why they stay poor. That is why they stay small. All right? So let me give you a real one. There were some solid entrepreneurs that I know who told me later that they didn't join Scale Advisory because I didn't have a revenue qualification. Now, I said I'm not going to have a sales call, and hopefully the price kind of wards people off. But just because because I didn't have a revenue qualification, some solid people were like, I'm not going to join. All right? You have to be willing to say no. Now, why did I not do that? I didn't have a way of verifying it. That's why. I was like, I don't have a way to verify this in 60 hours. But that's why. So I just used the price and had no sales team as a way of keeping, kind of gating this. Right, you want 30, exactly, Chad. You want 30 whales instead of 3,000 minnows. Now, I talked about this last time, but I want to reiterate this within the context of LTV. When you sell to a more expensive customer, all prices will go up, all right? And so when we did the launch, the targeting also has to mirror this. So if we know we're going for this person and we're messaging to match that person, the targeting should find those avatars. Now, part of that's going to be the offer, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. Like, are there offers that get more high quality customers than other offers? Absolutely, right? The offer absolutely is affecting this. But when I told you that we optimize for purchases versus optimizing for opt-ins, the difference was 4x versus 11x ROAS. All right? So that meant for us, and this is why you have to this is what I want to make real for you, is that if you decide that you're like, you know what, I'm going to listen to Alex today. I actually have been stuck at the same level. I want to make more money. 20% of my customers are worth way more. I want to make a business that's 100% made of those 20% customers. That's what I want to do. I love that for you. But this is what you have to be willing to do. When you go up market, you have to be willing to rewrite your metrics and kind of recalibrate your brain. So what does that actually mean? So if you're used to spending getting $5 leads and having $5 leads buy a $100 thing, right? If you say I'm going to start selling a $1,000 thing or a $5,000 thing, you can't just assume all of a sudden you're going to start running your ads and you're like, oh my God, our leads are $10 now. It's like all of your metrics have to get rewritten because it's never been about CPC, CPL, so cost per click, cost per lead, cost per call, right? It's all about ROAS. and LTV to CAC. And so many people love this idea. So some of you guys are like, yes, I'm going to go sell to richer people. I'm going to sell more expensive stuff because I understand that it's fractal and 4% of my customers could generate 50% of my profit. You're getting this math, right? And so most people love the idea, but then they see their lead cost double and then they stop. And so we want to optimize for ROAS or LTV to CAC, not cost per click, cost per lead, cost per call. So I'll also give you a little pro tip on this. You can score your leads if you ever get people's addresses. You can see their home address and you can put it through Zillow and see what their home value is. And that is a nifty little way that you can go through your existing leads if you didn't collect like complete data. This works especially well for e-commerce. And then you can take those lists of buyers, re-upload them into lookalike audiences to get better targeting is one way. The other way is that you actually just prioritize them in your kind of lead scoring system if you have an IVR internally that can help you score and sort leads. Kind of sexy, right? Sick tip. Sick tip. Thank Kaya. Thank you, Kaya. Okay, so messaging / avatar. So once we nail who we're talking to, the messaging that we're going to have, and the targeting for that, the next thing that comes up is going to be the offer itself. All right. Now, I probably talk about offer in almost every one of these, and that's because the offer affects everything. The offer affects what you sell. The offer affects leads. The offer affects LTV. Offer affects everything. All right. So I'm going to give you a couple things that you can take away that can increase your LTV. Okay. So yes, but they're arguably the most important part of LTV creation is the offer itself. All right. And so I'm going to talk about loss leaders and then bonus bullet / offer components in a little bit more detail today. All right, so you might have a lead magnet or free thing that you give away right now. It is common that if you change the lead magnet, you change the lead, right? Like if you're going to fish for sharks, you're going to fish for whales, you got to bait the hook differently. And so it's not like, okay, I'm going to keep marketing the same way and then I'm only going to sell to these people. You have to market differently. You have to market a different thing. And so to give you an idea on this, the cost of somebody going through the scaling roadmap, very expensive, right? It's a lot of information that we ask for about their business. Scaling roadmap, who do you, do you think somebody who doesn't have a business wants a scaling roadmap on where they're stuck in their business that's preventing them from scaling? I mean, some do, but do the majority of people who hear that messaging think, yeah, of course not? And so high friction lead magnets for a specific type of avatar expect to have higher cost per leads. It should make sense, but your indication that this is a good lead magnet should be that you have a high percentage of MQL, so marketing qualified leads. Now, another strategy that works very well is having loss leaders. All right. So this is a little bit more advanced because you got to be able to do math. But if you can give away stuff that people know has an actual cost, and I think there's huge, tremendous value in this, and people still don't do it. And so I'm going to just give you this tip right now, and almost none of you are going to do it. Maybe one of you will, and you'll be like, holy shit, this is unreal. You will see metrics you have never seen before in your entire life when you actually use a loss leader, okay? So I ran an offer a couple weeks ago, 3 books for $15. All right, that was because we have the books that we're donating. So we're like, hey, not only did I give away the books that other people paid for, I'm going to also add my books into my other 2 books. I'm paying for it. You can get all 3 for $15, shipping included, hardbacks. All right. The conversion rate on that was 10 times higher than any offer I've ever seen in my whole life. Insane. Another way of thinking about this, I will give you 5 one-on-one calls. Why is that so valuable? Because people know there's a hard cost to a one-on-one call, or 3 one-on-one calls. All right? Something that you cannot bullshit the value. That's the key here. Now, every person, anybody who gives any kind of media away is like, this thing is so valuable, it's insane. I made this PDF, I made this training series or whatever. I'll tell you why no one will ever perceive it as valuable as you will. Because there's 2 levels of friction to getting the value. Level one is you have to consume it. That's a real cost. So if you said, hey, I want you to opt in, and then I want you to give me an hour of your life. I want you to give me 2 hours of your life. I want you to give me 8 hours of your life. That all of a sudden is not free. It's not free. That's level friction number one. Level friction number two is that after I spend this 8 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is consuming this thing, guess what else has to happen? I got to do something with it in order to see the value, which means that the vast majority of lead magnets are actually just they're costs. They're costs. They cost people and they don't actually get a benefit. And so what are things that we know other people charge for that people can absolutely understand there's a true cost to it that we can give away, and we can just do math to know that we're willing to lose money so that we can get our cost of acquiring customers so much lower that it actually makes up. So if I lose $5, $10, whatever it is, $20 on each of these book sales, that's okay. Thank you, Greg. It's going to run my business shit. I worked really hard on it. But it's okay because we just might know that our cost to acquire them might go down by 50%. It might go down by 80%. And in that case, as long as we can convert them into something else, we win. Right? And I think the tip that I would give you here is that the marketplace still hasn't shifted. And I think everyone's doing AI wrong. So this is going to be a little bit of a side rant, but I think this will be valuable for you. People are using AI incorrectly to make money. Instead of saying, hey, I have an AI website development service. Hey, I have an AI lead working service. Hey, I have an AI powered consulting practice or whatever the hell, right? No one actually cares. They just want more leads. They just want the accounting done faster. They just want better creative. It's like you're telling people your secret sauce on how you do the thing, but they just want the thing. You just keep that to yourself and then keep the margin. That's how you should use it. And I think one of the better ways of doing it is on the lead magnet side, because people will assume there's a cost, don't mention there's AI, and then they'll be more likely to buy or opt into the thing, and then you use the AI on the back end to make the thing good or fast or both. That people would assume a human would have to do it. That is how I think you need to do this. And this is why I think so many people I see everywhere, AI this, AI that, like for sure, but like AI, it just means it's artificial intelligence, just like human intelligence. And so does the actual intelligence of the person in any way matter to my outcome? No. Just run a marketing agency, get me leads. If you can do it more efficiently, good for you. I don't care. Okay. So, different front-end offers will affect LTV. Okay. And, okay, I'll make this one extra point, which is that some of you guys do offer discounts. I think discounts do something like, I think it's like a 40-ish% decrease in LTV for discount buyers versus standard buyers. So make sure that your CAC decreases proportional to your LTV decrease. It attracts a different person. And so some of you guys are like, man, I really want to be premium, but you're bringing in, you have discount bait, right? You're bringing the wrong people. Like Layla's not being like, oh, I want to buy a really nice jewelry thing and walking past places 20% off. She's not buying that jewelry, right? They're literally warding away whales. So some of your marketing is so bad because it's like literally a repellent for the people that you really want. This is why this matters. Okay. Now, Pat, if you want to do discounts on upfront payments, I'll be clear. I'm okay with pay for a year, prepay, and get a discount. I see that as very different than, hey, we're running a special. That is what I am against. All right. Now, offer components. Now, this will be more important for service. Actually, that's not true. It's important for everyone. But I believe that buyers, like voters, are single issue voters, single issue buyers. So most people will, they'll hear an offer and then there's the thing they want and then they say yes or no, it's worth it. Okay? So let me ask you guys a question. I don't know if you remember this. I know some of you guys, actually this would be a skewed, let's see how it works. So Did anyone not? I'll just ask the question. Tell me in the chat what one component of the offer when I sold the book bundle was the thing that got you to go and buy. Just put it in the chat. Like, what was the like when you saw that? That's when you did it. John Smith, I told you you were a punk. Here you go. So, see how interesting this is? People have different things, right? People have different things. And so we want to make sure, thank you, Sam, appreciate the donations. We want to make sure that every single component of the offer moves the needle. And so you have to be able to make the argument that, like, if it's not legitimately worth the entire price or more, do not include it in the offer. You can include it in delivery. You can give it just to delight people, right? Absolutely. You can do that. Like people, like the marketers and the sales guys are like, why don't I tell them everything? It's like you can actually just delight people. You can actually just give them a great experience. It's totally okay. Right? But the thing is that this is probably the thing that probably took me the longest amount of time was thinking through each of the components of the offer, right? And each of them had to be valuable enough that it was like, if they were like, if any person who's reading this or listening to this is like, if I just did this one thing or for this one thing alone, it would be worth it. If I just say, well, all this stuff put together, we've already lost because people can't think in the abstract. It has to be specific. And so it's a specific decision for a specific item or offer component. And so when you're looking at your offers, if you have 9 things, ask yourself, could I make it 4 and make them better? It's fewer better, not more, because it's also very hard for people to, in their minds, manage many variables, right? And so also, whenever I'm thinking about these things, this goes for any service, always think through, again, the value components of like risk, speed, and I should say ease, my bad. Risk, speed, and ease. And so when we have risk, speed, and ease, it's like, what things do I do that accomplish each of these components? Like, if I want to pay down risk, risk doesn't have to be guarantees. Risk can be like, what are the other things that someone fears about success that you can handle for them, right? Speed, how can we compress the timeline? How can I make a component that compresses the timeline? So for me, who here can guess in the, and to be fair, some things can check multiple of these boxes, right? Which of the offer components, let's say, went more towards risk? Because that'll be a harder one. You guys know the offer for the 6K? We had to list the workshops. I also, Mustafa, I never promised lifetime access. Just I want to be that out there. You're good, dude. All right, you don't understand the question. Yeah, I'm guessing no one understood because we're not getting a lot of answers. Okay, so for me, when I included the AI, it decreased the risk of execution. So the whole idea is like, okay, I'm going to get all this stuff, but how am I going to be able to apply it to my business? And so the AI bridges that gap. It's a combination of ease, risk, and speed, which is what makes it so compelling, right? Because you're going to get the answer instantly. It's going to be retrofitted to your business, so that decreases the risk that it doesn't work. And it's easy to do. It's easy to work with, right? And so it actually checks all 3 of the boxes, so it's a bit of a trick question. But that's the idea is for each of the components, I always want to think, what is it really doing for me, right? And so the playbooks, to your point here, also to a degree, answer the I'll be able to have it happen faster if I just learn from somebody else. I'll also have a decreased risk, so it's not going to happen. Now, is it easier? They probably don't really check ease, that box. Not really. You have to go execute it. But it definitely decreases risk and speed, right? And so again, when I'm always thinking through my offers, I always think risk, speed, ease, and I'm always thinking like, how can I make this faster? How can I make this easier? How can I make this more risk-free? Okay. And this is what I think is wildly misunderstood by a lot of people who sell shit in general, is that the biggest cost of an offer component is the mental real estate that it actually takes up in making the decision. And so if you can sell people with 2 things, don't have 5. Dig? And so the text it, so this is a little test that I run, is that I have to be able to text my offer to someone. And so like think about how much a text can't be, I'm not saying paragraphs. It's like it's got to be able to fit in the screen that they can just read the offer and they got to be able to say yes or no from the offer. If they have more questions, I need to clarify it more. I need to make it more elegant. I need to make it simpler. If it takes up multiple screens, I gotta compress it down. And so the idea is how can I make it as tight as possible? And I just use it as a texting test. And in general, when you sell, if you have to explain it, it's too complicated. Right? As soon as you start explaining, it's like, it's too complicated. Just cut it. So, a couple tactics, little pro tips for you. For those of you who sell services, include sales consultations as a part of your offer so that you have built-in ascension timelines. So the whole goal is to increase LTV, right? So wouldn't it be good for us to have opportunities that the person opts into that we can sell them more stuff, right? And I also want to be clear here is that if these are upsell opportunities, they can be unscalable, right? And that, so in a counterintuitive way, the unscalable components of your offer can also be the things that increase or enhance your LTV in two ways. One, it increases the perceived value of the front end ticket, but it also increases the likelihood they buy the back end ticket. Both things, right? Think about this. So I'll give you an example because sometimes people can't make this real. So in the weight loss world, I would sell that we were going to have check-in consultations throughout. We're going to have a nutrition consultation. That'll be our onboarding. I was like, and we're going to have a one-on-one halfway check-in point to make sure we need to make any adjustments to your plan to get you, the best outcome. What are both of those? Nutrition consultation, I'm going to sell you some supplements. When we're at the halfway point, what am I going to do? I'm going to sell you the membership, right? So you can sell your sales consultations, which what do you think that does? One, the likelihood they show to those sales consultations goes up, but also it enhances the front end value and decreases risk that they're not going to get what they want. Yes, bam, bam for life. Now, the next piece of this is that you can also sell events. Now, this is not everyone. Actually, I'll do one more example of the consultations. So if you're a home services business, right, what would I want to sell? Right? What could I possibly sell that would be another value enhancement? Well, if I want customers to buy from me year over year over year, what do you think I could sell? Maybe I would sell an annual checkup. Yes. Maybe I would even waive the annual checkup price point, which comes with a certain amount of fix-its included if they prepay today. So I get people to prepay today to guarantee that I'm going to come out next year and find some shit that's wrong and sell you some other stuff. You can always include sales consultation, just frame them differently. And obviously you got to do the other stuff, but most times if you meet with a customer and you haven't met with them in a while, you're going to ask them how life's going, ask them what the problems are, and they're going to be like, oh, you were good at the other thing, can you help me with this next thing? It's not this is an ethical way of helping customers. We're just actually structuring the offer so that it helps us rather than hurts us. To the same degree, you can sell events that you can pitch as part of an offer. I just like to include that, right? So events are a great opportunity if you can incorporate them into your business. Not always, but if you can, it works great. So if you're not sure what's a part of the core offer and what's an upsell, because this is usually a question that I'll get, the core offer is the thing you promised. Now, what is a great upsell? The thing they hoped they get but didn't. That's what a great upsell is. So I'll just briefly touch on these from a money back, from an LTV perspective. Win your money back is a wonderful way that I have seen people increase their average ticket because they actually apply a certain amount of implied discount that they believe they will get back. And so it's almost like a rebate. So somebody who's willing to pay $300 straight up might be willing to bet $500 on themselves that they'll follow through with whatever you tell them to do. Buy X, get Y free is a wonderful way to increase LTV because you pull obviously that revenue forward. So this is one of those, that's why I love Buy X, get Y free because it's just a super banger offer. Like you pull cash forward, you increase cart, decrease churn, it does a whole bunch of stuff. So that's why I'm a big fan of that for increasing LTV. Annuals. So To be fair, annuals is also a buy XKY free, but I just thought I would separate it out a little bit just to say, because some people don't think about it in that context. Because one is time, the other is units, but it works the same way. But if you have the opportunity, have the annual offer, right? At least make it. So if you're $5,000 a month, at least offer people the ability to pay 50 and save some money. And I like to remind everyone of this, that risk, speed, and ease can always be sold separately or upsold separately. So if you're like, well, I don't know what my upsell should be, make it priority. Same thing, faster. Great upsell. Who do you think pays the most for speed? Rich people. And if you're like, I don't want to offer anything different. It's like, that's fine. Just do it faster. And just put them at the front of the line. Right? Ease. Can I make this even easier for them? Can I have a concierge element to this? Can I really pencil out, like, how much would it really cost me to drive to their house and empty out their kitchen? How much would it cost me to pay somebody else to do that? Not that much. But it's the perceived value of somebody flying out to your house and taking care of this thing that might take a day worth an extra $10,000? Probably. Would it cost you that? No. Right? So that's why, the whole Grand Slam offer process of like, just be crazy and then actually think about how much it would cost and then reconfigure the offer. Okay. Anchors. I'll be brief on this one. So I'm obviously a big advocate of anchors. I talk about them a lot. And your annual and your bulk purchases can also act as anchors. The key with anchors is you actually have to sell them. And I think this is where people go wrong with anchors, is they try and like skirt past them and just kind of like mention them rather than like fully commit to them. Because if the person doesn't really make a purchasing calculation in their head, it doesn't anchor the decision-making process. Like, it's the number one thing that people mess up when they try to do anchors and they don't work. Now, I do believe that for many of you, especially those of you who sell services, that you should think, what would I have to do if I were to add a zero? So I want you to do this one right now. I want you to do this one right now. This will be an actual activity. In the chat right now, think about your service. I want you to add a zero to your service. Whatever your core offer is, add a zero to it. All right? So think about in your head, add the zero. What would you do, or what would you do for somebody if they were willing to pay you that extra zero? Drop in the chat. What would you do? Yes, Paz, your pools go from 150K to 1.5 million. These some baller ass pools. So, Paz, what I would actually think about for you is just 10x your gross profit and then look at that price. So if your hard cost is, let's say you run 30% gross margins on your pool build, so you make 50 on 150, see what it would look like to make 500K instead of 50, and then look at that price tag. Yes. Okay. So if we're looking at this, I'm loving the chat, right? If you're looking at that, the question then becomes, okay, so this is step 2. How much does it cost you to do that extra thing? Like, give an estimate and just put the percentage of how much it costs versus the increase. What percentage does it cost you? Put the percentage in. 1%, 3%, 2%. 0% extra, right? Okay, 5, 25, 10. Right. You guys are getting the vibe here. If it costs you 20% more and it 10x is the amount of money, you're running if it's 10% more, then you're running 90% gross margins on this, right? And so we have to be willing to make that offer available. Like, and guys, I'm not even saying like everybody has to buy it. I'm saying at least allow people the opportunity. And remember how fractals work, right? 20%, 1 in 5 will pay 5x to 10x. And then of those, 1 out of 5, so 1 out of 25 or so, right? 4%-ish will be willing to pay 25 to even 100 times more. All right? And so even if you sell 1 a month of this monster anchor, that 1 a month might equal half the revenue of the business. You may be like, this is risky. No, it's an upsell. It's okay. And to this point, when I started my gym, I had a customer who paid me around $4,000 a month in cash to do 90-minute PT sessions with him and his nutrition 5 days a week. So there's a lot of training, right? And people are like, you don't want to get distracted. You want to stay focused on your business, whatever. Because I didn't do any PT. It was just group training. But for $4,000 a month, I didn't have to live on the gym. I could live on this one customer, and then all of the gym money, I could just keep doubling down into the business. And you also get some really nice anchoring from a branding perspective, because imagine if you've got 5 or 10 private clients that you do this elite tier of service for, right? This elite membership, this elite anything that you do, or they're the only ones who have access to the owner, whatever, right? In that level, what do you think it does in terms of the perception of the rest of the stuff, right? It pulls it up. Why does Tesla start with the Roadster and then do the Model S and then do the Model 3? Part of that was manufacturing, but from a branding perspective, it was awesome. It anchors high. Why does ACQ, we started with the portfolio. That was the first thing we started with. And then you do tiers underneath. You work your way down because the brand stays anchored high. And so for those of you who have never done this before, limit it to 5 and cap it. Just make it simple. All right, you don't have to overthink it. And you just have to sell it for real. And if you really want to let's ROI today, make the offer to your list. This is a fast cash play. You can read the playbook. I'd recommend you do it. You will make not less money. Okay. Now we're getting into the kind of around the final tranche of our workshop today. Okay. And so this is, I would say, the fractal component. And I'd say if I had to break today up into what are the major chunks of today, I would say understanding fractals is probably big chunk one. Fractals as it relates to the offers that you make and how you price them and the expected take rates, I would say that's kind of big chunk one. I would say big chunk two of what we covered were how to reverse engineer all the metrics that relate to growth. So number of units sold per month times LTV versus gross profit versus hypothetical revenue max, how we can move those variables around so we can figure out how many sales guys do we need, how many units do we need to sell, at what price point to get what we want, right? I'd say that's kind of second chunk number, the second chunk of what we did today. The third big chunk is making sure that you are selling to the richest possible customer you can. All right, now we covered the messaging, the avatar, the targeting. All right, we talked about the front-end offers itself has to make sure that you're actually attracting the best customer. Does a scaling roadmap attract a company that's trying to scale more than a book of mine does? Yes. Yes, it does. It does. Because many people buy the books. But people who want to download a scaling roadmap usually have businesses, right? And we talked about having an anchor that is appropriately priced for that person. Cool. So I'd say this is kind of chunk number 4 of today, okay? And so this is kind of an exercise that I want to take you through. Now, some of you guys read the LTV playbook, and that's great. What I want to actually walk you through is how to think the LTV playbook, right? So here's how we think it. So these are the crazy 8, right? I call them crazy 8, but these are the 8 ways that you make more money, right? You can increase prices, you can decrease cost, you can increase the number of times they buy, you can cross-sell different stuff, you can sell more in quantity, you can sell more in quality, you can sell fewer, so the bottom 2 are downsells, and the only ways those work is the way that I explained with the school thing, right? Is that if you have the opportunity to do it in an automated way in terms of conversion and delivery, and you have a massive number of people who would qualify for it, that is where that makes sense, okay? Okay. These are the 8 ways you can make more money. Now, what I want you to do is we're going to do an exercise together. This will probably take you, it'll take you probably 2 minutes each time we do it. So I'm going to put a little timer on. And I want you to be able to apply all 8 to anything. All right? So we're going to do the first one. How would you charge 10 times? Dude, John Bishop, how would you charge 10 times more for physical therapy? There's so many ways. You could bundle more services together. You could add in supplements. You could have somebody else who does one or two tiny other services bundled in. You don't sell physical therapy, you sell an end goal or an outcome or wellness, and then these are the components that give them that wellness. If someone's in pain, quite literally pain, they will pay anything to get out of pain. What you can't do is try and sell 10 chiropractor cracks for 10 times the price. What you have to sell is a pain-free back or being able to pick your kids up. That's what you sell for 10 times more. And then how you get me there, I don't give a shit. Okay. Sorry, a little rant there. All right. So, are you guys ready? I'm gonna do an example right now. And I want you to go through each of the 8. So if you had a smartphone, how do we increase the LTV? I want you to be able to look around a room and do this with anything. Some of these are obvious. You could increase the price of it. Okay, fine. What else would we do? So if we wanted to decrease costs on the phone, it's like, can we buy more in bulk for the raw materials? Can we vertically integrate from a supply chain perspective? Physical products are a little bit tougher, right? Can we I mean, it's going to be manufacturing, it's going to be supply chain, it's going to be raw materials, right? Can we increase the number of purchases? How can we get people to buy more phones? What do you think a fucking family plan is? Right? Can we cross-sell something different? What would we sell? We'd probably sell phone cases. We'd probably sell phone insurance. We'd probably sell better coverage. What else would we sell? Right? What else would we sell? We'd sell apps within it. All right? How can we sell more? So the family plan there. So the difference between, by the way, quantity and increased purchases is the number of times someone buys versus how much they buy. Sometimes it's a little more difficult, but I like to delineate those things so that as you're thinking through your own businesses, you think through each of these mechanisms, right? Planned obsolescence, great one, Adrian, really good. How do we sell better quality? Well, of course, there's the iPhone normal and the iPhone S and the iPhone Super S and the iPhone Super Duper S. I mean, I had it pulled up earlier with Shopify and Apple, right? They literally had different price points based on the different customers. Also, if we wanted to sell even more quantity, we could probably sell companies and get them to buy all of their phones I do this. We buy tons of iPhones for our team, right? So that would be a B2B or wholesale. And so that is an example of all of these. Now, we just go fewer in quantity or downsell in quality, but you can walk through this. All right, let's do a different one. Tables. All right, let's say we have metal tables. All right, so we can increase the price of the table if we want to make more money. We can decrease the cost of creating the table. We could sell a shittier version of the table, like a plastic version. We could sell a nicer version of the table, which would be a wooden version. If we wanted to increase the price, we would say that we salvaged it from a pirate ship, right? So there's a narrative behind it, and we'd pour that glaze over it, and there would still be little seashells on it so they could see that it was from the bottom of the sea. How could we get to increase purchases? We'd say, well, you've got this table for your kitchen, but what about your other rooms over there? We have obviously they're all one of one, but we get them to buy other tables for other rooms. What else do you need? Cross-sell. Well, you probably want some chairs for their table that are also made of the same type of ship, right? We also have table sets that go with it and those bowls in the middle that are also made of this fancy wood, right? So we have to be able to think through each of the elements of anything. Yes, rich mahogany, exactly, right? And so I want you to go through this again, but now do it with your service. So how you want to increase LTV? These are the only ways to do it. These are the only way to do it. Now, increasing number of purchases for a service, 2 ways. We decrease churn, because that means they buy more times, or we sell them more time at a time, or we get them to come back again. All right, so I'm just giving you 3 different frameworks for thinking through this. All right, so I'm going to put a little timer up. Actually, I don't know how to do that, but my team will tell me, and I'm going to pee, and you guys are going to get 5 minutes to go do these 8. All right? I'll be back 5 minutes. What's up? What's up? We're back. Back in black. Not really in black and white. Also, I saw a question, Jeff Brewer. You asked like the $360 thing. That was just an estimate. Not obviously it was a $9 offer, but a lot of people wanted the 99 thing, right? So even though I made the offer, like you can go there nine, but there's obviously the option to get 99. And I would tell you, I'll bet you the split was 80-20. So yeah, that's where that number came from. Jeff, you asked that. All right. So now that we got a little nicotine in our systems, a little refresh, a little fresh piece. You guys had some time? Go ahead. Oh, thank you. Alec, you got it. That's exactly what I was going to ask. All right. Perfect. Throw in what you just did over the last 5 minutes, how you do it. Okay. So increase per 12-week program, 27,000. Great. Increase purchase, decrease churn or get back again, some more at a time. So that's the annual discount. Are you just telling? Okay, here we go. Sell more quantity. Buy now and get 2 free checkup sessions after 6 months. Great. Love that. I would reposition again. So the checkup session, I wouldn't call them checkups. I want them to be something sexier, but the right idea, right? I'd say like we actually do like a tune-up that includes something that they would want, which is like maybe a massage of some kind, something like that. And I would say like also you can bring a friend to that for free as well. And then that becomes a referral opportunity. So you can cross-sell them plus have the friend. We've got sell better quality. Okay, work with clinical director for increased price. Yep, bingo, great. Decrease cost. We have sell virtual sessions or sell pre-made books, guides, courses. Yes, you can also sell the gadgets and gizmos. So think those like massage rollers, massage guns. Think like the fancy pads, the orthotic type stuff. You know, things they can use at home to do some of their physical therapy. I would probably put a bundle together and then sell them as kits because the perceived value is going to be it's be harder to price compare. Okay, cross sell different. Let's see what we got here. Selling programs aimed towards specific problem points. Parent training versus in-person sessions. These parent training versus in-person sessions. I don't want that one. I mean that yeah, that is technically correct. I'm just thinking like, would that be sexy enough? So I would think like the cross sell different would probably be like products. I would think supplements that would help them heal. I would think, can I get them on some peptides that would help them heal faster? I probably think something more in that direction. So like like a great way to think through things is like I've got services, great. Is there physical products I can pair together? I think one of the big missed opportunities, especially in brick and mortar, I don't know if you're brick and mortar, but even really anywhere, is pairing physical products with services because anyone who's been in services is so used to selling stuff and then the work begins. With physical products, like the sale is the majority of the work. And so like I remember when I started selling physical products in person, I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I usually like if I sell a training package, it's like it's so much work to get them to buy, but then you still have to like complete the whole training package. Whereas I would sell supplements with the training package and almost make half the profit on the supplements and then be like, that was it. I just handed them the stuff and I walked out. It was awesome. So just something to consider if you have that. Sell fewer quantities. So this is basically thinking, okay, you've got your $27,000 thing, and maybe that $27,000 thing is 6 months, right? And then you can make the lower quantity of that 3 months at 12,000 or whatever. Sell worse quality. Take out specific touch points. Parent consultation. Yeah. So whenever I think quality in services, I'm going to give you a bunch of different tactics in a second on this. But my hope is that, and I'm not going to read all of these because I think it'd be tough. But I think that going through this process is arguably one of the highest return things that you can do in the business because this is literally what you make money on, right? And if there are ways to harness the fractal nature of customers in such a way that you can get that 20%, that 4% of customers that are going to be responsible for half or more of the profit that you have, like put this stuff in place. It's very important. Okay. Now I can find the clipper. Here we go. Huzzah! So let's go through these quickly, and then we'll wrap. Cool. All right. So from a raise pricing perspective, I will not, I will not belabor this point more. But I want to just be very clear that more yeses does not equal more money. So kind of like I said with the downsell thing, when you have a $10,000 offer and a $2,000 offer, what happens is more people will shift towards the downsell because people like hearing yes more than they like making money. And so you have to be comfortable with the idea that you will have yes said to you more infrequently, and you will make more money. So some of you guys got this as a Mosey Minute, but I think this is one of the more tactical things that I've come up with that has worked really well. And so many of you guys, I think it's 75% of you sell in person or over the phone with a salesperson. And so if you're at 80% plus close rates, I'm really looking at you guys who are done for you service people. This includes home services, health services. Like if you're closing 80 plus percent, you're probably underpriced by 3 to 4x. 3 to 4x. Take your price, multiply it by 3, look what that number is, try that next time. Also, when you do triple it, expect no more and expect to make more money. But yeah, and this is for the same products. This is for the same exact thing. So I'm saying you change nothing if like with this pricing guide. All right. Now I'm all for making Grand Slam offers and making better offers by all means. Like let's do both of these things. Let's make the offer better and let's increase the price by 20x, right? Let's go for it. But this is just purely not changing the offer, just in terms of thinking about price. You sell the same thing for more money, you make more money. All right? So if you're at 80% plus close rates, I'd consider tripling to 4xing the price. In done for you, does the 3 to 4x have implications on churn? Yes. None of these things are in isolation. However, there are many done for you services that are one-off. So I'm thinking right now more like, yeah, I'm just thinking more home service related stuff. If you're closing 80 plus percent, and what often happens with done for you services is that you are supply constrained, right? You can't even take on more customers. And so it's like, if you can't even take on more customers and you're closing 80 plus percent, raise your prices. Okay. If you're between 60 and 80, you're probably underpriced by 2 to 3x. Jeremy, I am talking more about service packages for HVAC. So basically what I would do is like, if you have the actual unit, which that is commoditized, you sell the same unit as someone else does, I look at the service area as probably the bigger areas of opportunity. There are, to be clear though, you can still probably raise the price. You might not have this level of increase, but you still have a monster increase that sits there. Does that 80% make a difference if it's between inbound or outbound leads? Well, if you're at 80% on outbound, like wherever you're at 80%. If you're at 50 to 60, you're probably underpriced by like 1.5 to 2x. 40 to 50, you're underpriced by like 1.25, so 25% increase to 1.5. And if you're between 30 and 40, you're probably appropriately priced, maintain there. And if you're below 30, you can probably focus on selling better before touching your price. So it's like you're below that, it's like, all right, well, let's just improve the close rate so that we can work our way up to these higher numbers. I'd rather you not decrease your price. And yes, Hazi. Many of you guys, so I'm gonna make a really important point here. You know too much about what you do. You know what your competitors charge. You know the market rates for things. Your customers don't spend their time comparing HVAC stuff and comparing dental things. Now, for sure, there's like tiny moments of time where you're gonna do a little bit of window shopping, but oftentimes a lot of prices aren't clear. They're not always on the site, and they're not customized to the person. All of these things make it more difficult, right? And so, again, if you're closing 80%, you're underpriced. This is a rule of thumb. Some of you guys would be like, there's no way. I would say, try it. And here's the best part. You can change it. So it's like, I'll have somebody fight me for an hour about raising their price by 20%. And I'm like, try it. If it doesn't work, roll it back. If it does work, guess what? You doubled your profit. What is that close rate based on? It's based on offer to close. You can't. No, you're not closing 80% of your leads. No, offer to close. So I ask someone to buy and they say yes. Okay. Now, I want to be clear here. Every business for service has one real objective over time, and that is to increase the price. Now, I would say this is for a traditional service. The exception to this is if you are a low-cost leader, and that is your primary value prop. If that's not that, which the vast majority of people it isn't because you use humans to do your services, the goal is to become the most expensive one in the area. Why? Because if you're the most expensive one in the area, you're probably also the best. Okay? Price is a two-way communication mechanism. It communicates value as much as it is a way to attract better customers. Okay? Now, what do I mean by this? If you are good at what you do, let's just take it through the natural extreme, right? Let's say you're good at what you do, and you then have more demand than you have supply. So what would happen in the situation where you have more demand than supply? If you're a bad business owner, bad being defined as minimizing profits, then you would just have super long wait lists, and then eventually people would just go elsewhere because they're not willing to wait. Okay, fine. But if you were enterprising, you'd be like, well, supply demand, law of economics, I will, because I have more demand than supply, I will raise my price. Great. And now at this new price, you're still selling at the same velocity as you were before, but your wait list just like cuts down. Great. Guess what? You still have this big wait list. What else should you do? You can raise your price again. And the thing is that as you get better, because you still do a good job, your word of mouth grows, and then that wait list continues to grow again. And so it's this idea of you get better, and then when you get better, you can raise your price because you have more demand. And then with that extra gross profit that you're charging because you have a premium and a reputation, you can attract better quality talent. The better quality talent increases your reputation. You do a good job. You have more demand, so you can raise your price. And so this is and when you raise your price, what do? You attract better quality customers. And so it's a virtuous cycle of price, right? Big price, better person, more gross profit, better talent, better reputation, increased demand, raise price, more gross profit, more talent, more demand, and around you go. That's the idea. And so you can almost in shorthand tell how good someone is at the service they do based on how they price. The only exception to that being if their entire strategy, which you would know if this was your strategy, day one was, I want you to be the cheapest on the market. And you decided from the first lease, from the first employee you hired, that every decision you made was to be around the low-cost leader. Walmart only works because they decided to be a low-cost leader, not because I can't sell good and so I'm going to lower my price. That is not being a low-cost leader. That's being bad at business. If you want to be low-cost leader, there are advantages to do it, for sure. But you have to make the whole business ops structured in that way. And so if you want to be the low-cost agency, like I mentioned earlier, that's at $200, $300, $400 a month, guess who you're not hiring? People in the United States. Guess what else you're not doing? Anything custom, right? Everything you're going to have is virtual assistants that are offshore plus lots of automation. That's the game you're in. But you might still be able to run 80% gross margins, right? No reason we can't. And you're going to have to sell way more units. But that's okay because you decided day one that was going to be the game you were going to play. And I've said this before. You either sell to a few really expensive people or you sell to a lot of poorer people. I use it to be a little bit more hyperbole, use hyperbole. But when you sell to a lot of those people, it means that we're selling a scalable offer. That's the idea. Okay? And so I'm saying that this is the eventuality. It's always going to go up if you're doing a good job. So, some of you are going to object and say, I can't. And you will probably say you can't. And that is because you have a commoditized offer. That is why the first chapter of the offers book is you sell a commodity. I'm in HVAC, Jeremy, right? You're like, I'm in HVAC. They're going to compare me to the guy down the street. Exactly, because you're selling a commodity. We have to reframe what we're selling so that, and this is the whole point of the offers book, how can we not sell 10 chiropractor visits? Of course, your cracking back versus someone else's cracking back is going to be a commodity. These two things are close enough. I'll go with the cheapest one. The goal is that we don't sell that. We want to sell the wellness program, right? We want to sell the house improvement plan. We want to sell the fact that they're actually going to save more with us. And so here's a reframe for anybody who does kind of home services or construction related stuff. I'll just give this to you. So whenever you present price, you want to break the frame around being the cheapest. And what we reframe that is local versus global. So what does that mean? Is that if you look at how much it costs for us to install this thing or build this thing out or restore your basement or fix your roof or whatever the hell, right? If you just look at the cost, right, of us doing that, we're for sure going to be more expensive. But the reality is that you cover the cost of this entire home and you plan on living here for multiple years. And so you can spend less money, but you will spend less money today and more money over time. And so all you do is then say, here's case study one of somebody who went with a competitor of ours who's absolutely cheaper than us, no question. And then there's us that they went with later because we fixed their work. And guess how much less they spent over the next 3 years? And if you're like, well, I don't have that data. Welcome to marketing. Maybe you should collect some of that. And then when you have that, you have a compelling narrative to why you are priced higher than anyone else because it's actually in their best interest to get the higher quality thing. Okay. Fantastic. The second reason that you can't raise your price is cowardice. You're just afraid. All right, let's stay there. I mean, really spell out. I mean, I think I had a tweet that went really viral on this. If you're afraid of doing something, actually spell out what you think is going to happen. People will say no. And then what would happen if people said no? You would change it back. Okay. To use something that people said in 6th grade, big whoop. For those of you who are 40 and under. Right? You can always change it back. All right. So that was my short one. You guys have followed my stuff long enough. I'm not going to belabor the raising price point. You probably can raise your price if you get better at your sales motion, you decommoditize the offer, and you sell to better customers. And also, Jeremy, to this point that you asked about HVAC, part of being a commodity is selling to the masses. What if we targeted higher income homes? And when we go to those houses, they have multiple units. And they care about ease and they care about speed and give them priority and say, hey, most people can come out and it's going to take them 2 weeks before we can get out there. We can get there same day. And by tonight, you'll be able to sleep comfortably. Can you do that? Yeah, probably. And I'll tell you personally, as somebody who has actually, ironically, had a bunch of issues with my HVAC, I will pay literally anything to make sure that I can sleep comfortably. And I want it to be ice cold where I sleep. And people who have more money will spend more money to be comfortable. And they will do it. They will spend even more to have it happen immediately. And so again, we have risk, we have speed, we have ease. And so if you're like, how do I raise my price? How can you do it faster? How can you make it easier for them? How can you make it at a time that's convenient? Right? Like these are the things. So essentially like it's impossible. It's only impossible if you are doing the same thing as the other person, which if that's the case, stop doing that. And if you're like, well, I don't know how I'd be able to do it faster. Welcome to solving valuable problems in your business. Okay, I won't rant. So the next of the crazy 8 is decreasing COGS, right? Decreasing cost of goods sold. So I'll give you guys a really good tactic for this. Number 1, so I want you to consider making this survey for your customers. So number 1, what customer, their name, and their average revenue if it's B2B. Otherwise, it could be their address, whatever. You want to know what customer it is. These are 2 very valuable questions they ask in SaaS, but they work 100% for service. And by the way, SaaS is software as a service, which means everything that works in SaaS works in service. So, last one standing. This is the question. First question you ask on that survey. Please imagine we were forced to remove all but one of the following components from your plan, from your service, from your offer, from your whatever, right? From the thing you bought. Which single one would you fight the hardest for us to keep? This would be the very last thing you'd let us cut. That's the question. All right. Can we do a survey? Actually, can we do that? Is that possible on Zoom? We're not on Zoom. Well, guess what? We're gonna do a live survey right now. You guys can see how it works. So that question is what we're talking about. Oh man, my legs are sore. Okay. So we've got, what do we have in AC Scale Advisory? All right. We've got workshops, this. We have advisor uh, feedback. So if you guys ask questions, my team is answering them. We have community. We have, what else do we have? We have other stuff? I think that might be it. Is there anything else? What am I missing? Am I missing anything else? Replays. Yeah. Well, there's the AI, but that's kind of like sits with the original 6K offer. Um, I'll say replays. We'll say that. Yeah, because these are live. Yeah, that is a good point. Recordings. All right, we'll use these as our you know what? Fuck it. I'm throwing the AI in. Let's say that's the offer for today. All right, that's the offer. Um, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna go crazy. I'm basically combining both offers, playbooks. All right. Okay. So in the chat, I want you guys to put down A, B, C, D, E, F. Which one is the last one you'd want me to cut? Last one you'd want me to cut. Ooh, this is so interesting. This is great. I love this. Really cool. You guys know I'm totally going to use this. I'll probably do a more formal one, but this is super interesting. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple things to take from this. All right. So number one, when you ask your customers this, you want to make sure you don't treat all customers equally. That's why we ask the first question. So if I find out that all my poorest customers, the ones that are the biggest pain in my ass, want thing one, but all my rich customers want thing two, I want to have more thing two and I want to get rid of thing one. All right, so it's not just purely like, oh, I want whatever everyone says, that's what I'm going to do. Thing one. Thing two. If you have very even distribution between the components of your offer, it means you made a great offer. Because it means that every single component you added got those specific people. And that was the point when I talked about the offer components, right? If I had a perfect split of 1 6, 1 6, 1 6, 1 6, 1 6, 1 6, then it's like, don't change anything about the offer. It's great. But I will tell you a story of what happened with one of my companies when we asked this next question, all right? So the next question we ask is first to go. So last one standing. So there's three, right? We get their information. We say, who the fuck is this, right? Then we say, hey, if I was going to cut everything, what's the last thing you fight for? And then on the flip side, we then say, imagine we cut costs and we could only remove one thing from everything you currently get. Which one of these things would you'd be happiest to see gone tomorrow? In other words, you wouldn't miss it at all. All right? So let's run through this again. Which one of these things would you be most okay with seeing gone tomorrow? Like, I got to remove one. So one of these things is disappearing. Which one is it? Great. Sorry, Preston. Okay. So we're going through this. So let me tell you a real story of what happened with this when I asked for this at gym lunch. Okay. So we sent this survey out because I had learned about how this worked. And what I did is, it was crazy because when I actually listed out all the components of the stuff we did, I was like, oh my God, we have like, this is 6. I think gym launch, we had like 16. I mean, we did so, because I was earlier in my career. I didn't understand it was about fewer, better, all this stuff, right? I was just like over deliver. I was just killing myself trying to make sure that everyone was happy, right? So the stuff that was valuable was scrim and clear. For us, it actually did concentrate. It was lead gen and sales, top 2. That's what every gym owner wants. They want to be able to get more people in the door. It's also the smaller the business owner, the more common that is. Okay. Now, this is where it was really interesting. When I asked the first to go question, we had this massive concentration in this area, which we offered tech support. And so one of the big issues with I mean, any small business owners, they're usually not very technically savvy. And one of the big things of how Gym Launch worked for many years is that we did not offer any done-for-you services. I was a big believer, I still am, in education above everything, which is like, I want to teach a man to fish, not fish for them, right? So we would teach people how to build the landing pages. We teach them how to run their own ads. I taught people how to do it rather than doing it for them, okay? But some people would get stuck and they wouldn't be able to figure out the pixel and blah, 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 blah. And so I built this tech support department to support the gym owners. And I had 35 people in my tech department, 35. And that was different than customer support. This was purely tech support. And we had like a 3-minute promise. We'd get back to people within 3 minutes. So it was like, we put a lot of effort into this. When I ran the survey, the thing that was first to go, overwhelmingly, was that department. 35 people. And so I listened to my customers. And I cut the 35-person department. And guess what happened to churn? Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. And so right now, and think about how interesting this is. You right now have things that you're doing. Like think about the cost to us. We had 35 employees, we had management, we had headaches, we had HR, all that stuff. The training for those tech people was a pain, right? All of this stuff. And it didn't matter at all. And so there are components in your business, right? There are components in your business right now that you're spending a lot of effort on that don't make a big difference. That's why this is valuable. So if you're trying to decrease costs, figure out what people value the most, put more time there, and then try and cut if you see one, sometimes two concentrations. Now, again, we want to be clear. Are the people who are saying this thing isn't valuable, are they the good customers or the bad customers? Right? So there's a little bit of nuance here. I wouldn't just say like just a voting machine, right? You want to look at who's saying what. Otherwise, that's the game. Cool? Okay. There you go. I gave you my little story there. Now, that's the story around this. These are other ways you can immediately decrease the cost of your services. All right. So number one, you can increase the ratio of employees to customers. So if you do one-on-one services, you can think about this in semi-privates, right? One-on-one to one-to-many, right? That's the one way you can do it. You can offshore talent. So anything that you don't have to do in person, you can have all of that offshore. You can get people who wish they were in America and have PhDs for 20 bucks an hour who are grateful to work and grateful that you help them feed their families. So I think I had a more skewed version of what I thought offshore talent was many years ago. There are some exceptional people who work their asses off and work way harder than some entitled Americans. All right, so I think there's a lot of value there if you don't have to be in person. You can also tier your delivery. So, like, let me say it differently. Like, let's say there's 4 things that you currently have somebody who's expensive doing. Maybe 2 of those things you can have somebody who's not expensive doing, so you can get double the leverage on the expensive person. All right? You can sell more similar customers to productize your delivery. So basically, this is a big one for many of you. Who here is, can I get an oorah if you're between 1 and 3 million in revenue? Call it like 750 and 3 million in revenue. Thanks, guys. Oorah. All right, we got some people there. Yep. Okay, so this will super apply to you. This will super apply to you. It's typically at this 1 to 3-ish range where you have to become more disciplined with your customer avatar. The reason this is so important if we're trying to decrease costs, basically increase the gross margin of the business or the product offering, is that if you sell more similar customers, they're going to have more similar problems, which allows you to productize your delivery. So you can turn your your solution sets into products. Now, to be clear, it's still services, but you can templatize a great portion of it. Maybe 80% of it is repeated and a very small percentage needs to be custom, rather than I sell to everyone. This is one of the largest areas of improvement for most businesses in that 1 to 3. That's usually why they get stuck, because they get stuck in the ops, because it's the swamp. And so in order to get out of the swamp, you have to make it easier on yourself. And you have to do that by saying no to people who are not going to pay you as much, and then by saying yes to the people who do and having them be similar. This is why you call it narrowing it down, picking your avatar, niching down, whatever you want to call it. By doing that process, you can actually decrease the cost of delivery. So you can have these people who spend more money with you, and because they're similar, it also allows you to have it cost less. The best of both worlds. They spend more and it costs less. Very good. All right. You can also switch from done for you to done with you. That's also a simpler one that many people are totally down for. So that is a way to do it. Okay. Also, if you are somebody who does services that are done for you, especially on a construction related or you build stuff, project work, having guardrails for service, saying it can't exceed these units, exceed this time, exceed this whatever, that'll help decrease cost down. A really elegant way of doing this, especially with home services, for example, but this works for anything, is that you can include a guarantee on timeline or cost or whatever, only if they keep within these guardrails. So if a customer chooses to go out of those guardrails, fine, but your guarantee is void, and so is the budget that you gave them. All right, so an easy way that you can still sell aggressively on the front end, and then as soon as they change their mind, which they all do, then you can still basically, sell as much as you want on the back. Automating portions of the work, this should be obvious, but yes. The thinking process, though, is that I would encourage you to do is breaking it into chunks. And so where people get lost in trying to automate work is they try and think, oh, I'm going to, they try and think about trying to automate the whole job, when really you just want to automate portions of the job. And so it's like if you broke your job into 100 steps, the steps are significantly more automatable than the whole thing. And so just break it down like that. And it also doesn't have to be you. Like you can break down your employees' work into those chunks. And this is, to me, the high leverage work that you get to do one time that forever makes the company and the product significantly more valuable. Another one that's very common for service businesses, if you have the opportunity to start batching work. So you say, hey guys, on Fridays, we're all going to batch this specific type of work, or this department's going to do this type of work on this day. Then that team becomes more efficient on that day, and that will decrease your costs. This is a big one too. If you have any kind of, so this is probably for more consulting or B2B type, but you can go from synchronized to async, so asynchronized communications. So if you have like a touch point that's an hour a week or whatever, you can replace that with like an 8-minute Loom or a Slack update or whatever. And so typically you'll save 60 to 80% of your team's time by making this change, and customers like it. All right, so these are just I'm just giving you tactics, all right? You guys good with tactics? Tactics work? My hope is that one of these things will apply to one of you, and then you're like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And audit delivery. So what I just went through with the whole survey thing, that's the idea. You remove things that people don't care about. Boom. All right, buy more times. So increase the number of purchases. So I will just start by saying this, which is that if you want people to buy more times, make sure the food's good. Like if I talk to a restaurant, they're like, what is the hack that I can get to get people to buy more times? We've all been to restaurants. At the end of the day, how much marketing is there that can get you to go back to a mediocre meal? Like be really real with me. Like you have like a mediocre sandwich. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just mediocre. The vast majority of businesses are just mediocre. And so they want all the hacks and the tips and tricks. But like if you really want people to keep buying, you really want to decrease churn, there's 3 things that can do that are conceptual rather than tactical. Number 1, you increase the quality of the people you sell to. Number 2, this might sound kind of antithetical to what I was saying, but you decrease the price relative to the avatar. That'll decrease churn, right? And the third thing is that you ruthlessly eliminate the vast majority of things that do not add value, because it's actually noise. It detracts value. Now, what are some of the other kind of tactical things you can do? All right. So this is probably one of the best frameworks that I can teach in terms of how do you make something good, right? If like me saying this, or I'm saying, hey, make your food good. You might be like, sure, make my food good, Alex. How do I do that? So this is actually how you develop good product, right? Same thing for services. Every person buys an outcome. functionally, right? Like no one buys a service. No one buys drills. They buy holes in walls. That's what they want. They want the thing. All right. And so a good product or a good service works like this: outcome minus all pain. And so you have to think to yourself, what is all the pain, what is all the friction associated with them getting the outcome? What's all the stuff that they have to do that they don't want to do? What's all the stuff that they have to stop doing that they wish they could keep doing? What are all the things that I'm making them wait for that they're delayed by? What is all the risk that they have to incur or take on as a result of this purchase in order to get the thing they want? If I can remove all of the risk and I make it incredibly easy and I make it happen immediately, I have an amazing product. Most people do not want to do that work because you actually have to follow your customers around. You have to watch how they work. You have to see them actually go through the steps. And you will find probably that there's a ton of friction. There's a ton of bad stuff that you're currently selling in the process that you have to go piece by piece by piece and eliminate it. And so the easiest example I have of this that many of you have experienced is an iPhone is what is left after you remove everything that sucks about having a phone. So you think about everything you want to do with a phone, and then you remove all the shit that sucks about it, and what's left is an iPhone, is an exceptional product. Cool, right? Okay. The next thing you can do to increase the number of purchases, get people to decrease churn, get them to buy again and again and again, is you want to have fewer, better things. This is value per second, not seconds of value. All right? That's the list of items when you're going through it. It's like, does each one of these sell someone to staying, right? Another one is onboarding and expectation setting. So these are, 5 or 6, I don't know, I can't count it right now, things that you can immediately do. Like these are the 80-20. This is the 80-20 of onboarding. If you guys do not have an onboarding process for customers, no matter what you sell, you're missing out by a lot. But number one is we want a quick win, whatever that means. Number 2 is a personalized welcome, and there's stats. These are stat backed. I didn't put the stats there, but these are all like research backed. These things increase LTV. How can we get them some sort of material victory to show that the thing is working? It doesn't have to give the end goal, right? If I have somebody who feels better after their first week at the gym, I don't have to get them to lose 20 pounds. I got a win. Can I get them to do a pull-up that they've never done before? Can I get them to do 10 push-ups, whatever it is? I need a quick win. Number 2 is personalized welcome. How can I make it sure that they don't feel like just a number, another cog in a machine? They get something personalized. Number 3, day 1 through 14 checklist. This is really good. How can I give somebody a checklist that they know what they need to do because this is where everyone falls off, right? We're going for activation. The next is we want to have a human, if you can, it's not always possible depending on the price point that you're doing, but if it is possible, a human touch point as fast as possible. So the research says at least 48 hours. I would say, how quick can we do it the same day? It's like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to Sarah. She's going to be on with you in a couple hours. Let's set it same day, right? How can we keep the momentum going? Because the time where people actually make a judgment on how good your product or service is the first 24 hours. Think about that. They buy and they make judgments immediately. And you can blow them away, or get blown is probably not the antithesis of that, but get blown away. We'll just leave it there. Okay. And here's another one. Last point is, and I think this is wildly underrated. Proof of other people like them succeeding. So this is a sale. An onboarding is a secondary sale. It's a continuation sale. So people they finally, you got them over the edge. They made the purchase. What's the next thing we want to see? Did I make the right call? Right? What's the last part of the closer framework? CLOSER. Clarify what they're, label the problem, over your past experiences, sell the vacation, explain what their concerns. What's the R? Reinforce the decision. Proof of other people like them, reinforce the decision. So if you show them 3 people, and if you want it to be personalized, again, personalized onboarding, okay, find people like them who just won, and ideally, you guys have the proof checklist, make that proof as recent, make it as live, go through that to make it even more compelling. Long-term nurture. So if you want to get people to buy more times, remind them to buy more times. I think Mosey Minute is something like 20% of our sales come from that email. 20%, that's a lot. It's a lot of sales, right? And if you're in e-commerce, it's like 50% when done well, depending on your growth rate, right? And so many of you, and here's the great part about email, it's free. It's free. Free. How do I say free? Gratis. It's free. All right? Quarterly promotions. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys a visual to demonstrate this. So if we want people to buy again, right, we want to be top of mind. So imagine this is our communication line. And so we have our small communication cadence. And just think about this as our long-term nurture. This is you just provide value on a regular basis in soft CTAs. All right? Mosey Minute, soft CTAs. All right, Tom the system, get blown. Okay, here we go. So then we've got quarterly promotions. And so we're going to have a little spike a couple times a year, right? Where we're going to actually make a more concerted offer. These are going to be your fast cash plays. And I think you can either do them twice, I'd say like 2 to 4 times a year is about kind of like the sweet spot that I would consider doing it, unless you have different offers for different avatars, in which case you'd increase that cadence, all right? This is where email segmentation becomes really handy. But fast cash plays and having the quarterly promotion cadence, what's really interesting about this is like, this is kind of like the fractal thing that I was mentioning earlier, where just installing this in your business, like we were talking about, like, should I have a downsell? You could take that time that you're going to do the downsell and all that work and just set this up one time in your business and you will make more money. Dylan, you wish this was the first one. You know, man, you and me both, man. Actually, I'll make a point about this. So whenever I fix a business in reality, I usually fix them back to front. So if I'm walking through a business, I usually have to start with what do we sell? What are the gross margins? Because I'll start there because it's like, why bother marketing and selling and all this stuff if we're going to change this thing? So, and sometimes when you change the offer and you change the gross margin, you change the price point, that then trickles all the way back down to the front, which is, oh, if this is what we're selling to this person, then we're going to do all this. And by the way, Dylan, why do you think the first book is offers? For that purpose. Okay. So these are all ways to increase number of purchases. And then if we think about this as a pyramid, right? Of course, everything's a pyramid scheme. Humans are a pyramid scheme. Adam and Eve, right at the top. Anyways, here we go. So school community, right? Here. And why is that? Because it's top of mind, right? So if you can add all your customers to a community, they can interact with each other, they can provide value to one another, which is great. You have these punctuated, these fast cash calendar plays that you run on a quarterly basis or twice a year or whatever. And then you just regularly remind people of the value you provide with a soft toss. You just say, hey, here's something valuable. By the way, if you've been thinking about this, come check it out. Maybe it's a good time, right? It doesn't have to be crazy, but just making the offer available will do wonders of difference. And all of these things increase the number of purchases. I already covered that one earlier, so I won't go down again. Okay. Okay, this is actually this is a tactic. It's actually really good. A great way. So remember we were talking about earlier about. Actually, here we are. Wow, it's right here. Ta-da. We're talking earlier about this. If I wanted to get more people to this 83 whatever price point, let me show you how you can do it and how I have done it. I actually got a 66% take rate with a triple in price. I did do that. In my gym, I went from $99 a month, but I changed the service, to be clear. I had $99 a month, one-to-many, one-to-unlimited, and what I switched it to was $299 a month, because I still didn't understand pricing. I should have been $400 or $500. $299 a month, I can't remember if it was 1-on-6 or it's so long ago. Let's just say 1-on-6, okay? So I switched from one-to-many to 1-on-6. I think it was 1-on-8. Whatever, it's fine. So this was the change that I had to do. So what did I do to try and get, this is a Mondo price raise, and I even changed the service. So like, what did I do? So I'll tell you what I did. So I let everybody know. I wrote this long letter saying, hey, I realized that like my goal is to help you get in shape, and I feel like I've been failing at that. And I think that everyone actually needs to learn how to lift weights and count their macros. And so I only want to sell something that I feel absolutely convicted in, and I'm more convicted in this than you just doing hopping around doing boot camps. Okay? And that was true. I did feel that way. I later found out that what I want doesn't matter, but that's different. So, so what I did was I gave everyone a 14-day trial of my expensive thing. And so then after the trial, I kept 2/3 of my customers on $299 a month. I kept 70% actually. So 70% stayed and I lost 30%. So who can do the math on 3 times the price and you lose a third? What happens to your business? Can anyone do that math? That's right. Adrian knows. It's 9x. No, it was a double. So I doubled revenue of the business. But here was the other part. My overhead dropped because I didn't have to deal with 30% of the customers. And they were also the cheapest customers. Yeah, you need coffee. So that was what I actually did. And so for some of you guys, that might be the way to do it, which is I want to roll out this new tier and I don't even want to tell you it's amazing. I just want you to try it. And if you like it, stay on it. Really simple. And so this is a great way of increasing LTV. All right, next one. Sell more. Quantity. Quantité. All right, so hopefully you guys did read the Lifetime Value Playbook story, but it might be more fun hearing it from me. So I actually had a company that I was going to do a deal with, and we did do the deal. And what happened was we were at the very end of the deal process, and they had told me that, so this was a single product company, and it was all automated. So automated sales mechanism, checkout page, and the delivery was all automated, end to end. So this is basically a media arbitrage business. Once you know the metrics of the funnel, you can just crank ads and just print money functionally. Now, what happened was the night before where the deal was supposed to get closed, they said, hey, we finally have our upsell because we had all agreed, of course, you're only selling one product. Wouldn't it be amazing if we made another offer, right? There was zero continuity. There was no recurring, nothing. It was just like straight buy ads, sell stuff, make money, make the difference. And so they told me what they wanted to offer. And so to put this in context, this was a B2C business, so business to consumer business. And the idea that they had was we want to make our upsell telling people how to start a business like ours, telling our customers. And I thought to myself, just to put this in context, imagine a plumber comes to your house and is fixing your sink, right? He's fixing your sink. And then he ducks his head back out and he says, hey, by the way, want to start a plumbing business? Probably not the natural upsell, right? And so they kind of were like, listen, we already made the whole campaign, we already made the whole product, and we're pretty confident that our passion about this and that is going to shine through and that we know our customers maybe better than you do. And so I was like, fair, but I'm not going to do the deal if you guys aren't on board with this. And so I said, why don't we, and we went back and forth and it was like, it almost blew the whole deal up. And I said, okay, why don't you just send a survey out? Put your offer and put my offer. And if your offer wins, I'll fuck off and die. All right, I'll just, cut my own, slit my wrist and jump off the building. And they were like, okay, fine. I was like, Layla will be upset, but whatever. And so we ran the survey. I met with them a week later, and they were like, so we ran the survey. And I was like, and what happened? And they were like, well, one of them clearly won. And I was like, and they were like, it was this offer. And do you guys want to know what the offer that I had was versus theirs? Would you guys like to know what it was? Okay. More of that thing you just bought. That is the offer. So if you aren't sure what to make an upsell for whatever your business is, the 2 highest converting offers of all time, and I know they're the highest converting offers at all time because they only always work 60% of the time, all right? And so And so option A is more of that thing you just bought. And who wants to guess what option B is? More help with that thing you just bought. Yes. More and better. More of that thing, more help with that thing. Those are the two options. And those two offers only always work. And so if you're like, what should I sell? Start there. And so theirs was not that. And as a result, that was the actual result from the survey. 85% of people preferred my offer to theirs. I'm not going to say what theirs was. They preferred my offer. So, a way to frame this, by the way, if you are on the more, in the more game, is to lock in guaranteed savings. And you can even use Mark Cuban because he famously talks about this. He said, bulk toothpaste and soup is the best guaranteed ROI. So if you can save 20% on stuff you know you're going to buy in the future, it's like getting a 20% return on your money this year, right? And so that's the frame. It's like, well, what are you going to do in the market that has a guaranteed 20% return? Probably not a lot. So if you know you're going to use it, you know you're going to buy it either way, you might as well buy it in bulk now. Yeah, Dylan, I'll have a new shirt. And to be clear, whether you're selling products or services, if you're selling products, think in units and size in terms of more. Like, how do I make a bigger burger? How do I make more burgers? Like literally more of a burger, a bigger thing, or more of them. That is the two ways you have more from a products perspective. And then from a services perspective, think units of time, more months of service, things like that. If we're selling quantity. All right. Next up is quality. So, who has a t-shirt making company? Okay. So if we're doing quality. Now, I covered this in, which book did I write this in? I think it's in Money Models. I think it's in Money Models. I think it's in Money Models. So if you're trying to change the quality of the deliverable, right? This is kind of a list of all the different ways that I can think of for a service business. Now, for quality of deliverable for products, it's going to come down to the ingredients, right? The materials you're using, the manufacturing, like how well put together is it, and the design and the packaging. Those are the things that are the true quality of the product. And there's obviously all of the messaging and story and narrative and whatever that you put around it. But for products, it's fairly straightforward in terms of how do you have higher quality. For services, people get kind of confused on this, which is why I have so many different examples. So speed, because we talk about risk, speed, ease, but some people get lost in like, okay, well, how do I make things faster? Well, there's a lot of ways to have speed integrated into the quality of your service. So think speed of response. So, hey, if you talk to us at this tier, at this upsell, we were applying minutes versus hours versus days. Speed of delivery. So instead of waiting in line or having a 2-week wait list, we'll put you a priority. We'll do same day, we'll do next day versus next week. Time availability. Call whenever, come whenever is going to be stronger than you can only come at specific times. You only call within specific hours. There's days of week, right? You're only able to come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or only respond to you Monday, Wednesday, Friday versus all of the days, right? Times of day, 9 to 5 versus 24 hours. The amount of time. So we're only giving 15-minute support calls. You get unlimited calls, or you get, let me see, in terms of duration. So 60-minute support calls. There's location availability. This location, this is for brick and mortar, versus all the locations we own. Cancellation. So you can reschedule whenever you want. Think about like Southwest. They kind of added this quality premium, which is one of the reasons people do like Southwest, versus rescheduling or rebooking fees. Premium versions might also have, like, think service delivery ratio. 1-to-1 versus 1-to-many versus many-to-one. So you have 5 people on one account, right? So if you think about acquisition.com, the highest level at the portfolio level is many-to-one. It's my entire team on one business. That's what it looks like in terms of service tiers. Communication method. Can they text? Can they do chat support? Is it video call? Is it live call? Is it asynchronous? These are all different tiers of service. Provider qualifications. You, the owner, versus a long-standing, very intelligent, very proven employee versus a new employee. Tiers of service matter. If you're going to talk to a partner at the law firm, it costs more, right? And so there are your equivalent of partner. It's just that most businesses that are not, I would say, like the tried and true accounting, legal, management consulting, like these are businesses that are 50, 60 years, they're household industries, right? But here's the thing, look to them because very smart people have already figured out billing methods that work well to frame value. And so a big part of that is you're going to have a partner on your case. You're going to have me on your case. You're going to have whoever, right? And so the service, obviously not all service is created equal. That's why you're in service, because you think you're better than other service providers. That still works within your business. You've got live versus recorded, for those of you who have any kind of media-related business. In-person versus remote. I still think this is wildly underrated. Many of you guys who have the opportunity to do in-person versus remote, this can be a huge value unlock for many of you. DIY, DIW, DFY. So do it yourself, done with you versus done for you. If you want to move up the value chain, this is how you do it. Like, you can pretty much add zeros at each of those levels, usually. $100 thing, $1,000 thing, a $10,000 thing, or a $1,000 thing, a $10,000 thing, a $100,000 thing, depending on what you do. Expiration, so this thing works forever, lifetime, right? Works for this period of time, or only works at specific times. And then obviously personalization, right? Generic, 3 to 5 avatars that we pick from or made just for you. Whew. Cool. Lots of things. Okay, upsell timing. So those are the things that anybody can do to increase LTV of the core offer you have by upselling them in different ways and different things to upsell. We're just going to talk 2 more things and then we'll wrap. I think we're doing good. We're doing good. So upsell timing. So I have talked about this, and I still think people fuck it up all the time. So that's why I'm saying it again. There are 5 times where upselling makes the most sense, and I would encourage you to do all 5. So if we have this line here, we have immediate. We have right now. So you bought this thing, I'm going to immediately upsell you. The next thing is we've got like 24 to 48 hours. So think about that onboarding call that you should have to set expectations. You can upsell right there. You can also upsell at the first activation point. So this is when some good thing happens according to your service. It doesn't have to be the end goal. It could be when they do their first push-up. It could be when the first phase of the project is done. It could be when they get their first lead. It could be when they make their first sale. It could be when they lose their first pat. Like, whatever the thing is, there's a point where they say, I have made progress, and this is demonstrable. At that point, they're very excited, and they haven't closed the loop yet, which makes them prime for an upsell. The next one is the halfway point. And if you're like, why does the halfway point work? Because people are just normally used to doing things at the halfway point. I don't know. I can just tell you that we do, like, in my world, this is usually one of the top converting spots, halfway. And I'll tell you why it's better than this one, which is where almost everyone who doesn't follow my stuff does it. They say, I'm going to sell you 6 months, and at the end of month 6, I'm going to sell you the next thing, right? This works way better because people are still in the buying cycle, right? Here, they have to make another purchasing decision. And so ideally, you want it to be at the halfway point because they're like, oh, I'm not done yet. And of course, when do we sell? At the point of greatest deprivation or the point of greatest value? Point of greatest deprivation. If somebody is incredibly thirsty, right? And I have a glass of water and they're in the desert. Are they willing to pay me more before they had the glass of water or after they had the glass of water? Before, right? And so the thing is typically people will mess up their upsell because they sell the right offer at the wrong time. And so I'm laying this out for you. Are there any ACQSA upsells? I'm deciding. And so you guys can tell we've already passed that halfway point. Here's the other thing. My brand is about stating the facts and telling the truth. And I was very hesitant to do this because it takes my time and the team's time. Like, this shit ain't easy to put together. All right. And I have just debated doing it. That's the honest truth. And so if I do have something, I will let you guys know about it. Anyways, back to this. My goal is to over-deliver and fucking crush it for you guys and have you love. Like, I want you to always love spending money with ACQ. And always be like, whatever they have, if they do have something, you should always buy it because it's always worth it. That is what I want. And by the way, that is the best way to extend LTV, is just do what you said you were going to do. But anyways, these are the best times to upsell customers. And these are the ones that I've just always seen work. Typically, you'll have already converted 70% of the people who are going to buy by the halfway point if you follow this method. Now, if you wait to the end, you'll typically convert 1/3 as many as you otherwise would have, which means that if you're waiting till the end, you're missing 2/3 of your sales. So right now, that might be for one person who's listening right now, that was the thing you needed to hear. So right now, that's probably the reason if you have a good offer and it's just like they feel like they're already cooled off. They already have like a foot out the door. This is the issue. Because if you hear a lot of this, I'll tell you what it sounds like. If you hear a lot of like, no, it was great. No, I think we're good. I think I'm good for now. I've just gotten what I needed. It was great. Love you guys. Love the team. Like if you get a lot of that, it's a timing issue. It's a timing issue. You're selling the right offer at the wrong time. Or you're definitely selling the wrong time. I don't know if you're selling the right offer, but you're definitely selling the wrong time. So that's upsell timing. We want to make sure that we're selling at the point of greatest deprivation. Now, the question you might think is like, wait a second. How are we selling at the point of greatest deprivation when we're selling in these points? So let me give you a little bit of scripting around each of these elements. So at the day one, they're the most excited and the most deprived. So it makes sense that if someone's excited, you upsell the thing immediately if it makes sense. That's pretty straightforward to explain. Now, the 24 to 48 hours, this is the best place to put you insert a new problem they didn't know about in the first sale. And because consumers and business owners typically only think one step ahead. And by the way, how to win in life, think multiple steps at a time. But I mean this, I'll give you the weight loss one because everyone gets that one. If I'm selling a membership to fitness services, people are like, okay, great, I'm going to get in shape. And then here we have our nutrition consult. What do they then realize? Oh, wait, I'm going to have to change the way I eat? Oh, no. Well, guess what? I have now created a new problem. And when we have new problems, we have new opportunities to close them with more money or solve them with more money. Now, activation. That one you might think, wait a second. If they just got value, wouldn't that be selling at the point of greatest value? Isn't that against what you just said? No. Here's why. Selling at the point of greatest deprivation is always a constant. It sometimes occurs when the person has received value. So if someone, here's an extreme example. If someone loses 20 pounds or 30 pounds, at that point, they will have received value. What will they be deprived of? Clothes that fit them, right? And so at that point, they will have a deprivation around a different problem that solving the first one created. And so, for example, if I promise people that I will get them leads, and let's say I get them leads, and then they find out very quickly after they got leads that they don't know how to sell, I might say, hey, you know what you might be a good fit for? Our sales training or our sales support, or I'll send a salesman out there, right? And so the upsell happens when they realize this new need because we filled our first promise. The halfway point, the way this sale works, I'm just giving you each of them because I've done all of these. The halfway point sale works like this. You typically, and here's the cool thing about the halfway sale, is you have one of two options. So basically it's like, how's things? And they're going to say, things are great. And you're going to say, amazing, but you're still not at your goal, create deprivation. And I'm guessing that this thing isn't your long-term goal, even more deprivation. What was your long-term goal? Oh, it's this. Great. Well, if you love what you do, you love this. Sorry, if you like this, you're going to love that. So then we upsell that happy customer. If someone's unhappy, wait a second. You can't upsell unhappy customers. Yeah, you can. Want to know why? Because they're still deprived and they still have the problem. If anything, believe it or not, they actually are in more pain than they were when they started. Now, this is not an excuse, obviously, to have unhappy customers. But what you can do is when you have those, you say, listen, I messed up. I shouldn't have put you in this lower tier. What you really need is this higher tier of support, and that's what I'm going to do. And you know what? Let me make it up to you. I'll give you the first 3 weeks at the old price just to get you going, or the first month at the old price, and then we'll roll it in if you like it. You can usually save or upsell half of these people because you still solve the problem. And so the clear point is you don't want to say, and this will just help all of you, you don't want to say, hey, I promised you this thing and I didn't give you this thing. Well, you have to put the blame on you, but it's I misidentified or misdiagnosed the level of support you would need. That's on me. Let me make it up to you by upselling you. That's the frame. Is this cool? Interesting? Useful? Okay. So that's how you script each of those. Last chance is pretty straightforward. Uh, last chance. wanna buy this thing? You actually, I joke. You would actually mirror the same setup here, which is like, listen, Dorothy, I know that we cut your speed in half in the last 90 days, which is what we promised for your speed site enhancement. But I'm guessing that just enhancing your speed isn't what you really wanted. What you want is way more leads and you want them more consistently. Does that sound about right? Cool. Well, this is actually one step in a 12-step process. And so why don't we just get you going on these other things? Because this worked great for you. So the rest of it's going to work even better because we already have the foundation in place, right? Because otherwise you have to redo this work if you start again somewhere else, right? And so again, with each of these, we have to say you're here, and I'll tell you what I used to call these sales. This one and this one. I called those sales the abandoned hope sale. And so I called it the abandoned hope sale because people at this point typically were pretty happy, right? So people come in the first 3 weeks of any kind of weight loss program, by the way, if you've ever done those, people are like, hooting and hollering. They're like, yeah, I've lost 10 pounds. Like they're feeling good. They got some energy, whatever. The true starvation hasn't really kicked in yet. They just lost the easy weight. And so at this point, we'd have to get them to abandon their hope and be like, listen, I'm glad you lost 10 pounds, but listen, you said you want to lose 60. We're not that close. Got a long ways to go. And so I'm guessing that you want this to be a lifestyle, right? Right. Okay, well then you won the challenge. You get it. You understand how this really works. Because the next 3 weeks isn't going to really change your life. But if we get the next 6 months or the next 6 years, we for sure will. Because at the end of your life, when you're looking back, who's going to really care if you were in shape for 6 weeks every 3 years of your life? Right? Right. That's what you really want to solve for, is can you do this forever? And that's what I'm here for. Does that sound good? Great. Let's take this. Let's roll it in, roll over upsell, and you're in. All right. Which is a pretty natural transition to upsell strategies. So obviously this is directly from the upsell strategies book. Sorry, the book, excuse. Section within the Money Models book. So we've got the classic upsell. So the classic upsell, this one, so if we're trying to like map where do these typically happen, classic upsell happens typically around the now one here. I probably should have included this in the book. This is kind of cool. I should probably talk about this. This sale right here, this works exceptionally well. The menu upsell works great there, which I think is what the next one is. Yes, that is the menu upsell. So those immediate points, basically whenever you're creating new problems, it works awesome. What's this next one? I didn't put the names on it. Let's see here. Thing most people don't care about. Oh, Anchor. So it's the Anchor upsell. Anchor upsell works great, killer here. Which is you're doing the abandoned hope. You say, hey, this is the thing that'll get you, like, hey, you don't really want, you've gotten some level of help, but you really need this really big thing. They gasp at the price. You're like, oh, I can give you this other thing that still gets you there at not, 10% of the price and only has one change compared to the big thing. And they're like, oh, great. And then you're in. And then we have rollover. So the rollover basically works. The rollover works, I would say, everywhere this way. Because if you're doing rollover right up front, I mean, it can work. Fuck it. The rollover works everywhere. I love the rollover. And as you noted, the rollover can get combined. So you can use a rollover with a menu, you can use a rollover with a classic, you can use a rollover with an anchor. It works in all of those situations. So is that as good for you as it was for me? Yes? How was the TikTokification, TikTok style presentation? Do you guys like that? All right, cool. Can we unshare the slide deckaroni? Okay. Great. Was this cool? Was this fun? The replay is calling my name. Actually, you know what would mean a lot to me? Of all the stuff we went over today, which one of these was the thing that you'll actually do? Because I would actually love it if you guys could make a mental commitment to one or two. Because we started at the beginning saying one or two things that you actually can implement in your business. Which one or two will you actually do? Okay, we got price raise immediately for Morgan, sales velocity times LTV, awesome. Fractals with Brian, great idea. Go after whales. Awesome. Add a 0, limit to 5. That'll make you like recommend. Fractal. Figure out the calculations, the math. Good. Um, Seeing how price raise 80/20. Yeah, the fractals. Crazy 8. Okay. Getting better at upsells. Cool. That's part of the game. For those of you, I mean, for the love of God, I hope you guys have read the book. But like, read the upsell chapter because that is one of the best ways to enhance LTV. Upsell at the halfway point and strong, awesome. Yeah, upsell timing, right? It matters. Price increase, refine offers for upsells. Yep, good. Sell more. Love that. Push more quantity. Great call. Figure out the fractal tier for your business. Good. Leave commodity. That's especially important for those of you who are in like, I would say well understood services. So when you sell knowledge-based work, consulting-based work, you're already selling kind of intangible. And so the price is very much like however good you are at making someone convicted that the way you're going to solve their problem is going to solve their problem. But when you have more traditional services, like you're like, I'm a backcracker, I'm a physical therapist. Like if you say and you can insert it and everyone nods their head and understands, like, what am I? Like my dad doesn't even know what I am. Like who knows? I don't know what I am, right? And so I'm an entrepreneur, right? But no, like who knows what that means, right? If you have a job where no one knows what you mean, you probably won't have this issue as much. If everyone knows what your job is, then you're a commodity if you don't play the game right. So you want to make sure that people don't say you're a chiropractor so they don't compare you to other chiropractors, right? That's the idea. It's like he's just like a really good health guy, right? He's just kind of holistic, right? It's like because you've reframed them on how you deliver products and services compared to everything else. Because the goal is that you are above comparison. You are beyond comparison, which allows you to charge prices beyond everyone else's. Okay, Alex and Gene threw you off. This is my winter wizard outfit. So yeah, I've been wearing sweats for many years in the winter, but these are actually stretchy. They're elastic. So they giving Brock Lesnar vibes. I appreciate it. In my winter, yeah, this is my winter art. I'm in my winter. I don't even know the Gen Z stuff. Okay, you guys rock. I hope this was as good for you as it was for me. And I hope you had as much fun in going through this as I had making it for you. So you guys are amazing. Please implement one or two of these things. It'll hopefully pay for this thing many times over. And yeah, you guys rock.